Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Tailosive Tech Live on YouTube. It is a crazy Monday. Oh my God. Do you ever just start the week and you just get slapped with a bunch of news all at once? And it definitely kind of ties into my last video talking about the Tesla phone, which sounded like a crazy concept that I didn't even want to entertain the idea of for years because it was so against and so different from everything that Tesla stood for, and Elon openly saying that he doesn't want to make a phone. Well, now it seems like Twitter. I think personally, this is motivated by them struggling to turn a profit, and they also know that Apple and Google basically. I agree with the headline Bloomberg came up with, which is that Apple and Google are going to decide whether or not Twitter can be successful. I mean, they're not the sole factors, but if Apple or Google decides that Twitter is not, acceptable or not allowed on their platform, then they can have a very large impact on the success of that platform. So I guess Elon is going back to his old argument on Epic Games being right, even though they lost the court case against the App Store. Someone probably needs to tell him. But oh yes, by the way, for the new people, the new channel members, we have updated the badges so that the badge next to your name is much easier to read. And it goes all the way from the H1 chip for new channel members and all the way up to, I think if you've supported long enough, it says M1 Ultra. But thank you, members, for showcasing how much easier the badges are to read. This is the most interesting story in a while, not gonna lie, says Michael Burkhart. Honestly, it's probably the most interesting thing going on in my opinion right now because there's not much else happening in the tech world. Black Friday sucked. A Cyber Monday sucked. All the deals sucked. I read a bunch of headlines saying, so there's the notification. Thank you, Michael. I read a bunch of no news stories that like Black Friday turnouts were the lowest they've been in years. Like nobody's going out and buying that much anyway. Um, Hey, the man about tech is in the chat too. Good to hear from you. Ethan Dabish, thank you for your support. Do you think Twitter will get pulled? I genuinely don't think so. So yeah, there's like so many different things happening at the same time right now. I'm sorry, it's kind of distracted. My opinion is somewhat complicated though because I want Twitter to succeed, okay? I know there's a lot of people out there that just hate Elon, hate everything he does, and they want him to fail because he paid a lot for Twitter, so they're rooting for Twitter's failure. I'm not that pessimistic. There's a lot of things I don't like about Elon, a lot of things I disagree with, but I personally think the truth and the most reasonable opinion or reasonable stance is usually not so black or white. It is usually not go all out or all hate or all in, just like how I love Apple, but I complain about Apple probably more than any other tech company. I complain about the iPads. I complain about their use of the lightning connector. I complain and their services pushing. I complain about so much things with Apple, but I love Apple. And I also buy all Apple products. That's my entire ecosystem. My entire brand is basically wrapped around Apple, but I still complain about them. And I feel similarly about Tesla. I love what they've done. I love my vehicle, and I plan on doing a 3 month later review later this week. So check out Tailosive EV if you want more thoughts on that. I'm a big Tesla fan, but I also don't agree with a lot of the decisions and a lot of the software branding choices they choose for full self-driving, even though it's not that. And I want Twitter to succeed, and there's a lot of things that Elon's talked about doing on Twitter that I'm excited about, but there's also a lot of decisions he's made that I think are terrible. So that's where I think, like, finding the middle ground, finding that fork in the road, finding that mid-tier position on things where you could admit that someone has good and bad ideas, and you should probably just highlight what you think is good and highlight what you think is bad. So, in the sake of being fair and somewhat objective, despite the fact that I'm openly biased towards Apple and I'm biased towards Tesla, I'm not afraid to admit that. I am a Tesla shareholder as well. But I also think Elon should leave the company. I don't think he should be at Tesla anymore. That's a whole different discussion. But what's happened? That's what Valkov is asking in the chat. Basically, Elon woke up on the wrong side of the bed this morning. I guess he drank too much Diet Coke. He tweeted a picture of his nightstand, and it was just covered in guns and Diet Coke. And Oh my god, this man is insane. Um, but what can I show you here? Maybe if I bring this up, editing mode. Basically, he made a bunch of tweets calling out Apple this morning because I don't think Twitter is doing very well for multitudes of reasons. So it basically started with this. Apple has mostly stopped advertising on Twitter. Do they hate free speech in America? What's going on here? Tags Tim Cook. So I found this hilarious for one, because it's a very loaded, very biased question. That because a company has decided to not advertise on your platform, that clearly means they hate free speech. Now, I don't. I'm sorry. That jump is just a little hilarious to me. Um, Now, personally, I don't think Apple hates free speech. I think that Apple, similar to many, agrees that absolute free speech can have negative consequences, which Elon Musk himself has even admitted to. He said that Twitter is not going to be a absolutist free speech platform. There are things they're going to allow, and there are still some things that cross the line. So I find it funny that just because Apple, and the funny thing to me is that the CEO of Apple still uses Twitter. He didn't like boycott it. He didn't like leave Twitter. He was still happy to tweet about Transgender Day and Thanksgiving wishes to the people at Apple and people who work for Apple. He's still very happy to use Twitter post Elon taking over it. It's not like there was a big boycott. The closest thing people were saying Apple was like boycotting Twitter over was Phil Schiller left. He like deactivated his Twitter account. But Phil Schiller doesn't work for Apple anymore. He retired like over a year ago. So I don't really consider Phil Schiller's behavior an indication of how Apple feels, because Phil Schiller no longer represents Apple. He's an Apple fellow, but that basically just means he worked at Apple for many years, but he doesn't work there anymore. And Greg Jaws also still uses Twitter regularly. So basically, Apple's head of marketing and their CEO are still avid Twitter users. It's yet to be seen whether or not they will pay for Twitter Blue to retain their verification status. But so far, even if you're not paying for Twitter Blue, if you were verified before, you're still verified now. Elon says that will change, but it hasn't changed yet. Um, excuse me. Um, Elon has provided no proof of this. Well, I mean that I don't doubt that. It doesn't. I don't think he's lying when he says that Apple has stopped advertising on Twitter, but I think there's various reasons Apple may have stopped advertising on Twitter. Maybe just being unsure of what the future of the platform has in store could be part of it. Maybe the fact that any account can become verified now makes Apple a bit hesitant to uh, advertise on Twitter at this time, because they're like, the platform seems to be like falling apart, or we're not really sure what the future holds in store for it, so we're going to hold off on advertising. But also, I think it's worth mentioning Apple has uh, lots of production issues right now because of the lockdowns and the protests going on at their Foxconn factory. That's a whole different story we can dive into. It's part of the reason I think Apple should make their own devices. I don't think they should outsource production. They should do more in-house vertically integrated manufacturing like Samsung does, so they don't have this many problems. But all this to say, iPhone 14 Pros are severely backordered, and a lot of the components that Apple needs to make their stuff are not being built right now, and that's impacting how many. Like, there's been all these stories from Apple employees at Apple stores that are saying they're getting substantially less new iPhone shipments because the production has basically screeched to a halt in most of Apple's factories overseas. So if you're severely limited in supply, I also think that warrants not spending much on advertising. Why would you spend that much on advertising if you don't have enough product in stock, if you can't even make anything? And also, Apple has paused on hiring on many aspects of their company. There's many places where they've stopped hiring. So if you're trying to like be more lean and not spend so much, and try to prepare for the economy, there's all kinds of layoffs going on across lots of big tech companies. If you're trying to save money, then spending money on advertising for products that you can't deliver, I think, makes a lot of sense. So I'm not surprised at all that Apple would suspend advertising on Twitter. But I don't think that means they hate free speech, especially when, as I was bringing up on Twitter, Apple is very comfortable promoting free speech platforms. I'm still unsure. Now, what I don't think is a lie is Elon said that Apple has threatened Twitter's presence on the App Store, but won't tell them why. I can pull up that tweet, I guess, because I have his account right here. So here's the crazy thing. Apple has threatened to withhold Twitter from its App Store, but won't tell us why. I would love to see the official document or the official email that Apple actually sent. Because I have a hard time believing they wouldn't specify. Like, what does the email say, Elon? Did Apple just email Twitter and say, we might take you off the App Store? Why? I don't know. It's just that email that says, watch it. Like, I don't get it. Like, what's the biggest thing that Twitter has done that would make Apple want to take it off the App Store, right? Is it bringing Trump back? In which case, Truth Social is available on the iOS App Store. In fact, there's free speech platforms that are paying for advertising using the iOS App Store. Apple is profiting. Apple is taking money from these platforms that have no moderation policies, that literally let people say whatever they want, including Trump. So if you're angry or mad that Trump is back on the platform, I don't see. To me, it doesn't make sense that Apple would ban Twitter for that. If Apple wants to ban Twitter for something, I have a feeling it's something else. I'm not sure what, but bringing Trump back, which I don't agree with personally, but that's a different discussion. It's like Twitter is not just absolutely letting everyone back. Like, a lot of people were asking, if you're trying to be all free speech and whatnot, why isn't Alex Jones allowed back on the platform? And Elon said no. He didn't say why, but he just said Alex Jones can't come back. I don't think Alex Jones should be allowed, to be frank. That's a whole different discussion, but I'm not in favor of him coming back, but I'm just saying clearly Elon thinks that drawing the line in certain areas is worth it. He's not in favor of everybody coming back. So I don't know what Apple's motivation is, but my theory is that Elon basically thinks that they can increase Twitter revenue substantially if they didn't have to pay Apple's 30% cut. And that's what a lot of his tweets are on about, kind of piggybacking the Epic Games complaint, which is that, here, Apple takes the 30% tax from app developers who make over $1 million through the App Store on an annual basis. And I don't agree with this person at all, by the way. They say that Apple's App Store is the equivalent to a 30% tax on the internet. Elon's saying that, did you know Apple puts a secret 30% tax on everything you buy through their App Store? First of all, that's not true. He completely misread the tweet. The tweet specifically states they only take a 30% tax on if you make more than $1 million a year. Okay, there's a crap ton of developers that don't make $1 million a year. So if you're buying or using any apps or in-app purchases from smaller companies, smaller apps that don't make $1 million, it's 15%, which is actually much less than the industry standard. And Elon seems to be convinced that any amount of money that's not spent on the iOS App Store, I guess, is not part of the internet. If you if you buy things on Steam, if you buy things on the Microsoft Store or the Nintendo Store or the Xbox Store or the Sony PlayStation Store, none of that stuff counts as the internet. No, Apple has a 30% tax on the entire internet, right? Because all money is just spent on the iOS App Store. No one spends money anywhere else on the internet. None of that matters, not to mention that a lot of it doesn't apply to things like Amazon. If you're buying physical goods and services, Apple doesn't take a 30% cut of that. Considering that Taliban members are on Twitter, people shouldn't be angry of Trump being allowed back, and I hate Trump, to be clear. Yes. I mean, I find that a double standard. I personally, it's a weird discussion. I don't think that they should be allowed either, personally, but Mark Gurman just commented about the Apple Twitter feud. Yeah, I think I didn't read the article, but I saw him tweet about it. Phil Schiller still has the head of App Store title. Yeah, but he became a fellow for a reason. Let's see. Isn't the W1 less powerful than the H1? No, I think the W chip is what powers the Apple Watches, which is a bit more powerful than the H1. H1 is just for audio encoding. Let's see. Explained why he can't come back, and Musk outlines his reasons behind that too. I didn't see that, but my point is he's not in. My point isn't why he's not welcome back, but my point is that Elon is willing to not let everybody come back. He's willing to draw the line. Feel free to explain their reasoning because I didn't see it, but Apple might not be happy about. There was that before. Apple was happy to advertise on Twitter when that material was still on it, Matthew. Um, Parler if they allow Truth Social. Yeah, I'm confused what Apple's motivation is too, but I don't agree that Apple is a monopoly. I think that Elon is so busy, so stuck in his own world that he's convinced that Android doesn't exist. He just thinks everyone uses iPhones. You know, they came out with Twitter Blue, the redesigned version of it with verification and everything, and they really only designed it to work on Twitter for iOS. They didn't update the Twitter for Mac app. It doesn't work for Twitter for Android. Like in his world, Android just doesn't really exist. And he thinks Apple is a monopoly and that the 30% tax is exclusive to Apple. It's not. That was incredibly popular when they added a 30%, when they introduced the App Store. Steve Jobs originally unveiled it and said that there would be a 30% revenue share. The audience applauded. Everyone thought that was incredibly competitive at the time because guess what? Walmart, other grocery store chains, they all put at least 30% revenue tax. It's usually more. Like YouTube, for example, who I would argue has a much closer definition to a monopoly than the iOS App Store does because you are not required to use the iOS App Store. It is not mandatory. However, if you want to create video content online, you basically have to do it on YouTube. There's really no alternative that you can get meaningful volume with. However, there's a lot that iOS is not even the most popular platform when it comes to mobile use. Android is still much larger. But also Google with the Play Store takes 30% as well. So it's an incredibly standard revenue share. YouTube takes 45% of ad revenue and gives 55% to its content creators. I personally find that fair, but it's definitely higher than 30% for all of the free hosting that YouTube offers. The fact that I don't have to pay anything to post as much content as I want. I can put 10-hour 8K HDR video on YouTube and they will hold it forever for free. I think 45% is reasonable, but it's definitely higher than the iOS App Store revenue cut. Let's see. In the US, Android is really not a significant part of the market. What are you talking about? It's like half and half. It's been half and half for years. It is by definition not a monopoly. Let's see. Discord sucks on iOS. Let's see. But pushed by governments to stifle a story they don't like. It's not new, but it's happening on a larger scale. I don't hear what Elon called it, a duopoly today. I think he called it multiple things, but oh yeah, there was a video here. Let me find it. There's a video here where Epic recreated the 1984 ad saying that calling out Apple's monopoly, Elon said accurate. So to me, that's him endorsing the concept that Apple's a monopoly, which I don't agree with. And then this meme he put out that rather than pay the 30% App Store fee, which again is not restricted to just Apple, that's on Android as well. Also, I don't know who in the chat is saying that Android is not a big. What are you talking? It's not a significant part of the market. What do you think all of these Pixels and Samsung phones are doing in the US? These are still like in total outselling iPhones. A duopoly that holds the same opinions on free speech is a monopoly. I don't think that's how a definition of a monopoly works. Monopoly would imply that one company is in control. Duopoly implies that two companies are in control, but then it's not a monopoly at that point. Yeah, Android is a monopoly in the non-Apple smartphone OS market. That's true. I guess you could, if you bend the definition that much. But Apple's convinced that, Elon is convinced that Apple I guess his logic is they should reduce it from 30% to something far less. Like he's probably going to advocate for it being 10%. That way they can get more of their Twitter Blue subscription instead of losing a third of it to Apple. Um, but for some reason, Apple is threatening Twitter's presence. I'm not exactly sure why. And I have a hard time believing that they wouldn't say why, that they would just ban Twitter for no reason. Um, yeah, we have a two-party system, but duopolies are not illegal in the same way monopolies are. Chris Norton, thank you for the super chat. Hello, watching on my PC. Appreciate it, Chris. Thank you. I agree. I don't really think not safe for work is why. It was just a thought and saw a few people saying it too. Well, there's actually been a lot of evidence that there's been substantially less not safe for work content on Twitter since Elon took over it that I've seen. They've taken down a lot of accounts that were posting illegal content. That's the best way I can describe it. And that was still very present and very much available on Twitter when Apple was advertising for it. So I don't think that's what it is. I'm not sure if it's because there's a lot of bad Apple news on Twitter, but you can easily post that on Truth Social, and they're happy to leave Truth Social on the platform. So, yeah, I would not side with Apple if their logic was there's people posting videos of, the factory protests and what's going on in China right now. If Apple just didn't like bad Apple press on a platform, so they said we're going to get rid of that platform because they say bad things about us on that platform, then I think they would they would get in real trouble, and going to sue them in court, they would probably win. But I don't think that's what Apple's doing, personally. Benjamin super chatted here. Elon is a perfect example of how good the right wing in America is at gaslighting people into joining their side even when they disagree or only slightly disagree. I'm not sure where the gaslighting comes in. But I appreciate the donation, Benjamin. No, but for the record, I'm very apolitical. I don't support the left or right. I think the whole system we have in place right now is kind of messed up. And I don't really endorse either political view. But I do think that people are tend to be very dismissive or hateful towards anyone that disagrees with them, and I don't think that's healthy either. I'm generally in favor of people having a voice to speak, but I also can agree and admit there are downsides to being a free speech absolutist, which I don't think Elon is, and I don't think Apple is. Let's see. A lot of people don't know Android and Google is one and the same. Everything is Android that isn't Apple for the most part. Yeah, but that doesn't make it a monopoly. Well, they're a monopoly because they don't know what Android is. That's the same situation we're in with Elon right now. Is he thinks Apple's a monopoly because he's just not willing to consider buying an Android phone because he doesn't like an Android phone. So you're trying to accuse. To me, it's the same thing as saying Netflix has a monopoly on Netflix. Why don't we have this same mentality towards Disney? That's what I can't figure out. Disney is way closer to having a monopoly than Apple is. iOS is like 50%, maybe 55% market share in the United States. That's by no means is that a monopoly in my view. And Android is not owned by Google. Does run the Play Store, yes, but Google doesn't even sell most Android phones. Samsung does. And Samsung has the Galaxy Store, which you can access on Samsung phones. So to me, it's like acting like Android is not a significant portion of market share is ridiculous. But it's like nearly half. It kind of goes back and forth depending on the year. Sometimes Android takes more market share. Sometimes iOS takes more. But again, that's just the United States we're talking about. Social media platforms are much, much larger than just one country. Let's see. Elon is so far from right wing, it's scary. I don't know. I think I agree with him being mostly leaning to the right, but not far right. He's like centrist. Benjamin super chatted again. He says, if Elon goes to war with Apple, Elon is going to get destroyed. There is no way around it. I think Twitter would get destroyed, yes. I don't know about Elon himself, but I personally think that he's had some good ideas with Twitter. Like, I think the idea of competing with YouTube and making a monetizable content creation side of it was a good idea, and it sounds like they're still interested in doing that, which means that you can upload videos. And he was in favor of having a competitive revenue split that is better than YouTube, so we would get more than 55% of the ad revenue we generate. And he was in favor of video content, audio content, being able to post videos and podcasts to Twitter, and that kind of thing. I think that's a good idea because it's important to remember Twitter was not doing good before he bought it. They were losing money. They were losing usage. There were less and less people on Twitter. And since he's taken it over, activity has gone up, usage has gone up, and there's been an increasing number of new accounts generated each day. Um, but that has not, unfortunately for Elon, that has not been met with an increase in spending on advertising. And I think what he miscalculated and where he was wrong is that he thought that if he made Twitter more desirable, or if he made it a more free speech supporting platform, that would result in more activity, which means more ad revenue spending, where that's not what's happening right now. What kind of kickstarted this whole war with Apple is that he's noticing less, and he tweeted this out, not just with Apple, there's substantially less companies willing to spend advertising money on Twitter now. And it may be because um, it may definitely, in my opinion, be because Elon has openly admitted his political leanings, and he has openly said a lot of things that people don't agree with. And as advertisers, you typically don't want to align yourself with people that are that outspoken. Even if what he's saying may be true or not true, just having someone in charge of a platform that's very controversial, regardless of what their political views are, they're hesitant to spend money there, especially if their ads are going to be alongside. Thank you, Benjamin, for the super chat, by the way. I'll read that in a second. But if there's anyone that has a lot of controversy surrounding them, that's going to make the advertisers less comfortable spending money on that platform, even if it is a successful one. I don't think it's necessarily um, political leanings trying to convince, like, put pressure on those advertisers and say, I'm not going to buy your product, I'm not going to buy your service if you run ads on Twitter. I don't think that's what was happening. I think they were just hesitant to all of the shift in leadership and all of the changes that were going on, and like verified accounts that were posting things on Twitter that were not true, that backfired very quickly. And Elon is thinking that, well, if we have a lot of activity on Twitter, then we'll bring in a lot of revenue, and that's not what's happening. So he went after Apple because I'm sure Apple was spending a lot of advertising money on Twitter. They're the most valuable company in the world, so they're easy to pick on. But I'm sure Apple is one of many companies that has pulled advertising from Twitter. And he also said in his internal Twitter email that he wants to get 50% of Twitter revenue from recurring memberships. And I don't think that was possible or realistic at all. YouTube, which I think has a way better subscription offer than Twitter does. First of all, can we mention, I just want to preface, I think that paying for Twitter Blue to get verified was a terrible idea from the beginning. I did not agree with that, and I thought that was a horrible, horrible idea. And I thought they rolled it out in a very stupid way that was worse than I imagined. I thought that there was going to be a verification process, and when you sign up for Twitter Blue, they look over your account and make sure you're legit, make sure you're okay, and then give you verification. That's not what they did. Without any process, without any question of who the account was or what they looked like, anyone who paid for Twitter Blue, they immediately verified them, and that resulted in a huge number of misinformative tweets and accounts that made a joke. It's a whole different discussion there, but there was an account that tweeted saying we're going to make insulin free now from a pharmaceutical company that charges for insulin. I don't think they should charge for insulin, but their stock tanked because of one account that was able to parody them with a verified check. So of course, it's very, very difficult and very complicated to verify if an account is real or not. And you can have these accounts that make stock prices drop that fast. You're probably hesitant to spend any money on the platform. Let me catch up with the chat here. By everyone's logic about Apple being a monopoly, I guess Tesla is also a monopoly. Tesla is much closer to being a monopoly than Apple is, in my opinion. Apple doesn't have as big a market share as Tesla does. Okay, Benjamin super chatted again. Elon is a total centrist liberal who gets freaked out by the right wing making stuff up and accidentally sides with them. It doesn't help that other liberals and progressives hate him and push him right with bad criticism. Yeah, it's I don't think all of the hate towards him is justified. I think he's done more for climate change than basically anybody, but I don't think that means everything he says is a good idea. Um, but thank you for the donation. I do think he probably aligns more in the. What's funny is what Elon says on Twitter, I tend to find myself disagreeing with more than when I just see him in an interview. If I see like a 2 hour podcast with Elon and people really just talk with him, I tend to find myself agreeing with most of what he says when he's just talking one on one with someone. But when it's just replying to tweets and retweeting uh, articles that aren't accurate and stuff, that's when I'm like, oh God, what is he doing? Okay, Neem super chatted as well. Drew, do you think Apple should have purchased Twitter and Tesla instead of Elon, just like Facebook bought Instagram and Google bought YouTube, and now this video thing is your full-time job? Yeah, I'm still amazed this making content and live streaming like this can be a career for me, which I'm very grateful for. And I have a lot of issues with Google and YouTube, but I am ultimately very grateful that they allow me to do this, that this kind of job can exist. So I got to give credit where credit is due. They've done an amazing job managing YouTube. What I was trying to say earlier was YouTube has a much better subscription than Twitter, even though it costs more. YouTube Premium is a way better deal than Twitter Blue, in my opinion. And YouTube has a way larger platform, 2.6 billion monthly active users, which is like something like 5 times or 6 times bigger than Twitter. But they only have about 10% of the platform willing to pay for YouTube Premium. And Elon was hoping to get Twitter revenue to like 50% paid subscriptions. And I don't know why he thought that was possible. He must have thought people really think Twitter Blue is worth it, and I just don't think people do. Vast majority of people on YouTube don't pay for premium, and I don't blame them either, even though YouTube Premium is a much better deal. Scott Herzog says advertising is down across several platforms as companies are tightening budgets due to the current economic environment. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely likely part of it. But to address Neem's question, excuse me. I mean, I would like to see Apple make a YouTube alternative. I'm really in favor of anybody trying to make a YouTube alternative. I don't really care who it is. I was even in favor of Instagram trying to do it with IGTV. Not because I want Instagram to succeed, because genuinely I don't really like Meta, but I still think it would be better if YouTube had more competitive market share. Like if there was someone that was close to rivaling YouTube, then YouTube would probably try harder. I'm honestly comfortable with staying on YouTube, but I want someone to light a fire under their butt so that they feel like they have to try and they can't just do whatever they want like they're doing right now. And YouTube makes a lot of dumb decisions that I don't agree with because they know that people won't leave YouTube. They can't. And if they do, then they don't make as much. So that's why even companies that make like Floatplane or Nebula, you notice that everybody that's on those social media platforms still has a YouTube presence. They're not willing to leave YouTube because they make way too much on YouTube. And I've heard of countless attempts at making YouTube alternatives. Let's see. My check mark on Twitter is definitely not because I subscribe to Twitter Blue. I lied. Of course. Let's see. Market share is not the only metric for a monopoly, though. Control over a person's product lifestyle and the ability to break new businesses are also factors, and Apple is really strong on those. I don't know if I agree. I think market share is the largest metric. If you can't choose to go with another brand, then that's a monopoly. With Apple, you absolutely can choose to go with another brand. I don't agree with that sentiment that people keep having. I keep seeing it everywhere that of like, well, if you want to have, I guess, a decent tech ecosystem, then you can't not buy an Apple product. It's like, you absolutely can. If you don't like, I know tons of people that don't buy Apple products. Are you just acting like those options don't exist? Well, I don't like those options. Why? Well, because they don't have the cool thing. I think you just like Apple. I think you just like Apple's features, so you're not willing to walk away from those features, but that doesn't mean that Apple has a monopoly. It's like saying, again, I keep coming back to Disney. Disney owns Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic. At this point, they're probably gonna, and they bought Fox as well, so they own like The Simpsons and just like, I don't know. To me, it's ridiculous to act like, well, they have a monopoly on Star Wars content, so I guess we need to break up Disney. It's like, well, they don't have a monopoly. I mean, you can choose to not watch Disney Plus, and you could watch other services. You could watch HBO Max. You could watch Apple TV Plus has got some good stuff, and it's a lot cheaper than Disney Plus. But well, they don't have Star Wars though, so it's like it's too specific to me. Whereas I agree that there are monopolies, but I don't think Apple's one of them. I think you're a lot closer to having a monopoly, especially with internet service providers. Comcast is a monopoly in a large chunk of the country where there's basically no other internet provider to go with. And it's not like you have a big list of internet providers to choose from. You have to go with Comcast. There's no choice. Um, but I would love to see someone come up with a decent competitor. And I like Tesla, and I think Elon, as much as I disagree with him, has led a lot of companies to success. So I was in favor of him making Twitter better. I was excited for that, but I just think a lot of the decisions he made with Twitter were bad. And going after Apple to try to ensure that you can secure more Twitter Blue revenue is not worth it. Epic went to war with Apple and it didn't work out. And if for whatever reason, I'm not sure what it is, but I don't think it's free speech. But if for whatever reason Apple decides to take Twitter from the App Store, Twitter will be in trouble. And if Elon tries to make a competitive phone, it's such a terrible idea. I kind of love it because the amount of funding and the amount of money it would take of upfront spending from Elon, he would probably have to sell more of his Tesla stock. And honestly, I feel like the less Elon owns of Tesla, the better. Because I'd rather Tesla become its own thing that's separate from Elon and just I'm a big fan of Tesla as a brand, and I think it would be a much cooler, much more interesting, much more universally appreciated brand if Elon was not there. I feel like that's 99% of the time when people have an issue with my car, it's because of Elon. Like anytime someone gets in my car now, they have to ask about Twitter. Elon can make 50% of Twitter revenue subscriptions easily, just drive 90% of advertisers away. Oh my God, that's hilarious. So yeah, I guess I wouldn't have been against Apple buying Twitter. I think they probably would have made a lot of different mistakes, but mistakes. Um, I don't know about buying Tesla though. I feel differently about Tesla. I think Tesla's big enough and successful enough that they don't need to they don't need to be separate. They don't need to be combined. I'm in favor. There's actually a different company I want Apple to buy that's not Tesla or Twitter. Um, but yeah, I don't think Apple would do it. Like Apple's not in favor of buying that many large brands. They tend to stick with smaller buyouts. The biggest brand I think Apple ever bought was Beats, and they didn't really do anything that interesting with Beats, in my opinion. So I have a similar feeling that if Apple bought Twitter, they probably wouldn't do much with it. They would probably just kind of leave it the way it was, and there wouldn't be that many. And then a bunch of people would leave Twitter because they don't like Apple. So we'd probably run into the same situation we're in right now. It would just be from different bad decision making. Benjamin super chatted a huge donation. Oh my God, $50. Too generous. He says if Apple had the App Store on other phones that they don't sell, then they would qualify as a monopoly because App Store is part of a hardware purchase where there's a ton of competition. Then no, they are not. It's like saying Xbox Store is a monopoly. I agree. The Xbox Store is not a monopoly, but if you're accusing the iOS App Store of being a monopoly, then yeah, you could make that same exact argument with Nintendo or Sony with the PlayStation. Like to me, that doesn't translate. Bro is making a larger and larger super chat. I know. Why is he donating? I'm very grateful, Benjamin. Thank you, but I don't know why you're super chatting so much. You support the richest man in the world over the richest company in the world. How brave of you. Uh, Wait, who? Who? What? Why do I have to pick one or the other? Um, I actually have more issues with Elon than I think I do with Apple. Apple just makes product design choices I don't like. Like, I think the iPhone should have gotten wireless charging earlier, and I think the iPhone should have got USB-C earlier, and I don't think the iPad 10 should exist. But I still have spent an ungodly amount of money on Apple products, and I talk about Apple pretty much more than any other company. Still, even with my EV channel, I make more videos about Apple. Um, Curbside, thank you for your support for 14 months. He's got the M1 chip next to his name. Apple should definitely make a YouTube competitor. I th- I don't know. I feel like you can't just make a new platform. It always changes. See, there's like a million different names in the chat here. Like, have you thought about Odyssey? Have you thought about Rumble or Google Plus? It's like all of these alternatives that come from the ground up never pay off. They never work out, because that's ultimately why I want Twitter to succeed, and why I haven't moved to what was it called, Hive, and I haven't moved to Mastodon, is because I've tried before with huge platforms like Twitch, and I know that you can't get people to move platforms easily. There's still a bunch of people that love complaining about Twitter, but they're on Twitter. They're using Twitter because people don't like moving platforms. It doesn't matter if another platform is better. I have no doubt that there's all kinds of advantages to Nebula or Odyssey or Rumble or whatever it is, but you can't get that many people to move. Everyone just always makes this assumption that it's very easy to get people to move platforms. It really isn't. People get settled in, people get comfortable with their apps and their accounts, and it doesn't matter. You notice how many terrible decisions YouTube has made with the comment section, and getting rid of the dislike button, and raising the price of premium, and increasing the number of ads, and the copyright claims that are falsely given. There's so many terrible decisions YouTube has made, and yet activity and usage of YouTube has only increased. People don't move. It doesn't matter if there's better YouTube alternatives elsewhere. People do not like moving platforms. And that's why I haven't moved away from Twitter. It's why I haven't moved to Mastodon or whatever. I've seen other people saying, I'm moving here. Well, I'm moving here. And they're all going in different directions. And I I look up these platforms, and they're having all these problems because a bunch of people are showing up and they're not used to it. And I've seen moderation complaints on Mastodon that they're like overly cautious with who they allow, and they're very quick to ban people. And I just know that, okay, some of you can move in the heat of the moment, but that doesn't mean all of your followers are coming with you. At least if you have a significant platform. It's probably different if you have like 20 people following you, but just it's very difficult to get people to move. People don't like moving. Um, so if Apple did make a YouTube competitor, I think they would have to buy out an existing platform. It's much easier to increase usage, increase activity on an existing platform than it is start a brand new one from the ground up, which is why even before Elon bought Twitter, I was on the record saying, if Elon Musk tries to make his own social media from the ground up, x.com or whatever, it will not work. Like, people will not move. You'll get a bunch of fanboys that move, and maybe you'll get a few million people over there, but you're not going to compete with Twitter. You're not going to get bigger than Twitter with a brand new social media like that. So buying out Twitter and tweaking it to your liking was definitely the best way to go about managing a large platform that you want to get big. So if Apple wanted to make a YouTube competitor, I would agree buying out Twitter would probably be the best way to do it. But I don't know necessarily if it would work out. I don't know if Apple could offer revenue sharing that would be much better than what YouTube can offer. Benjamin super chatted, in my opinion, I think Elon is lying about Apple reducing ad spending. I've seen a lot of Apple ads today, and so have other people via screenshots. I haven't noticed any myself, but I do wonder if the revenue sharing has dropped a lot. I don't know what advantage there would be for Elon to just say, to make up stuff like that. I don't think he would lie about that. Um, there's not much motivation to if spending hasn't gone down. Um, but I don't know if it's gone down to zero. Maybe the fact that you're seeing a bunch of Apple ads is because Apple realized that they were attracting a lot of attention to themselves now with the largest, most valuable, richest guy in the world tagging them on Twitter saying, "Hey, where's your advertising spending?" And they were like, "Sorry, we weren't trying to send a message. We didn't have much of a reason to." But I haven't noticed any. Maybe it's because I use Twitter for Mac, which doesn't have ads. Fun fact. If you don't like ads on Twitter, use Twitter for Mac. Um, let's see. Neem super chatted. Oh, sorry, I gotta keep up. Man, you guys are being awfully generous today. Thank you. Neem super chatted says, "I laugh at things Andrew Tate, James Charles, Sneeko, Elon Musk, and Jake Paul say." Oh my God, please don't make me say Jake Paul again. I don't take tweets seriously like some people, masters of outrage farming. Any impressions is good impressions. I guess maybe that's his motivation, is to just get a lot of people talking about it. Elon personally thinks the 30% revenue cut is too high, so he's just making a story out of nothing. And maybe that gets more people talking about it, I guess. But all it really has proven to do is get people angry. But anytime a company has taken Apple to court over the revenue share, it's not worked, which does matter for the record. That does set a precedent. If Apple wins, which they did, the last court case against Apple, I think 10 out of the 12 things that Epic sued Apple for, the judge favored Apple's position. Yeah, I did hear that Bob Iger is back at Disney. I saw that. But when there's a precedent set in court and Apple has consistently won, then it becomes very, very hard to win again when there's already been a successful case. Benjamin says, Apple is not a monopoly. To be a monopoly, the only solution is antitrust. The best solution for Apple is just regular regulation. Regular regulation, interesting. Rebrand iCloud as a social media. I don't think it works that way. They tried to do the same thing with Apple Music and iTunes. They're like, let's just rebrand iTunes as a social media site. It didn't work. Dear YouTube, Drew is still waiting on that refund button. Yeah, I know. There's too many super chats, but YouTube has too much to gain by not offering a refund button. Which company do I want Apple to buy? I don't know why, but I know why. The first name that comes to head, there's one that I'll save for an EV topic, Aptera, basically. Apple should buy out Aptera, but that's a whole different can of worms we can dive into in a future video. If we're not talking electric vehicle companies, then I would love Apple to buy Blackmagic. If they just started working Apple Silicon into Blackmagic cameras, like the ones I use for my videos, and they started building in AirDrop to Blackmagic and a bunch of exclusive first-party supported features, like the Find My network works with Blackmagic cameras, and you could plug in a Thunderbolt cable that records video feeds directly to Final Cut, because Blackmagic and Apple seem to get along really well. For those wondering, DaVinci Resolve coming to iPad, that's an application that Blackmagic came up with. So they seem to get along fairly well. Blackmagic always advertises their software and hardware on Apple hardware. Where, they showcase their cameras work. I love Blackmagic softwares on their cameras, and I really want Apple to enter the DSLR space and like the dedicated camera space. And Blackmagic specializes in a lot of broadcasting equipment that Apple already uses for their keynotes and stuff. So they seem to get along well. If we're not talking about electric vehicle companies, then I want Apple to buy Blackmagic. Neem super chatted, the controversial Samsung royal family and all their entities and influence over politicians have made them a monopoly in South Korea. I don't know specifically what the market share is there, but even so, I just think that the concept that you can't buy any other brand there, I have a hard time believing, because I know Apple exists in South Korea. It's just that people choose not to. There's a difference between a lot of people choosing not to buy any other brand and the people don't actually have a choice. To me, that's the difference between like Xfinity with Comcast. There is very large portions of the country where you literally can't go with any other internet provider. All you have is Comcast. And Starlink is thankfully the first time someone else is entering the picture. And there's more alternatives arising now. Like for the longest time, I could only buy Xfinity. I could not buy internet from anybody else. And then Starlink came along, so I switched to Starlink, and then T-Mobile Home Internet came along, and I switched to that because it was even cheaper than Starlink and better. So there's competition now, and that's changing. But I have a choice. I can still choose to go with Comcast if I decide that that's the better buy. But the point is, you don't want a monopoly because you want these companies competing with each other. T-Mobile can undercut Comcast and offer really cheap internet that's pretty good. So now Comcast has to try harder. Now I'm getting ads in the mail from Comcast saying, if you go with us, we'll make it 55 bucks a month and we'll give you 400 megabits download and we'll give you HBO Max free for a year. So there's competition. They know that I'm not with them anymore, so they're having to try harder to win me back. Um, it's a bit different than a world where I literally just can't sign up for Comcast or I can't sign up for Starlink. In the situation in South Korea, I have a feeling that you can buy non Samsung products. It's just most people are choosing not to because Samsung products are so good and hard to compete with over there. Benjamin said Drew once muted me to in chat to stop me from super chatting. I'm thinking about doing that. You guys are being too generous. But thank you for the donation. Not too long ago, all these tech reviewers were worshiping Elon Musk. Now that it's politically incorrect to support Elon Musk, they've all jumped ship. Well, I kind of get that. Like once you realize what is associated with Elon Musk, you may not support him as much. But I still defend him a lot of the time. I think there's a lot of misinformation going around that Elon didn't really do anything. He's not actually that impressive, or he hasn't really accomplished anything. He just buys companies, and he didn't do anything at Tesla. Someone else founded Tesla, and it frustrates me because if you know the story, if you read his books, if you know the origin of the company, there's all these people that are defending guys that literally did nothing but hurt the company. Everyone's like, well, this guy actually founded Tesla. And it's like, yeah, the board unanimously voted him out because he was lying. And he wasn't accomplishing anything at the brand. He was slowing them down. He was ruining the company. And now you have all these people defending him and saying, oh, Elon didn't really do anything. However, I do think it's important to acknowledge that companies and mass producing products that people enjoy is not accomplished by one guy. Now, I do think Elon Musk played a very large role in the success of Tesla and SpaceX and PayPal, but to act like it was him single-handedly is also untrue. I think it's important to credit the company as a whole and the team that he assembled. There's credit to be given, but I also think people act like he single-handedly does all these things, and if he's been successful in one region, that means he will always be successful. Again, it's in the middle. That's where the truth lies. That's where the best opinions are. Just somewhere in the middle is that acknowledging that he's accomplished a lot, but also didn't do it single-handedly and had a lot of help. That's, in my opinion, where the good space is. Dougie S, thank you for your support. You've settled in as my Apple YouTuber. Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Benjamin super chatted saying rebrand iCloud as a YouTube competitor. Again, I don't think that would work because that's not how people use iCloud. A lot of people used iTunes, but they couldn't get a bunch of people to use Ping. Neem super chatted. Thoughts on Twitter amnesty, Drew? Let me look up the definition because I'm a dropout. I think I know what it means, but an official pardon for people who have been convicted. Oh, yeah, well, I mean, I've seen some people, I heard of some people that definitely seemed like they were banned for no reason or not banned for a good reason, but it depends on the account. Like, there's some people that I agree with them banning, and honestly, a lot of the time they ban someone from Twitter, I kind of got it. I understood why they did it, but I respected them as a platform, as a company. They get to decide what is and isn't allowed. I kind of respect that. A lot of people feel like it shouldn't be allowed. Elon is seemingly more in favor of everybody can say whatever they want as long as it adheres to the laws of the land. Like, you basically just draw the line at a call to violence. But as we've found out with a lot of Twitter accounts, it's kind of hard to tell what people are saying. Sometimes a call to violence or a hateful speech is not so easily identified. Sometimes it's up for debate whether or not that was crossing the line or not. But yeah, in general, it just depends on the person, I guess. iCloud YouTube alternative making me only upload 5 gigabytes to my channel. That would be funny. If you upload more videos, you gotta pay for the higher iCloud storage. Oh my god. How has universal control been working for you? Asks Skylar Kilch. Okay. It still kind of goes off sometimes, and then I get my mouse on my iMac Pro, and then I can't get it back to my MacBook Pro. But for the most part, it's working pretty reliably. Excuse me. What do you think about Switch emulation on Mac? Harvey, I could not have less of a opinion on that. I don't play Switch games and I don't do emulation, so I guess have fun with it. He says, "What makes you think Elon would fail? Don't tell me you're turning in Quinn Pepe. I don't know. Elon could build an everything app. Look at China's We app. It's the Chinese equivalent of what X.com could be." I agree that it could be. I don't think that means it will be, especially if he's relying on advertiser spending. Um, just because one person was successful with one app doesn't mean Elon will be successful with his app. And I think part of the reason is, who's the CEO of WeChat? What is his political leanings? How does the CEO of WeChat feel about the war going on in Europe right now? Like, you don't know these things. You don't think about these things because it's a faceless brand that is neutral enough that advertisers are comfortable spending there. You can't say the same thing with Twitter. There's a very very well known, very controversial face in charge of the company that changes his mind on things very quickly. Okay, everybody who signs up for Blue is going to get verified. Oh, never mind. Actually, we're going to have colored verified. And it changes his mind so quickly on things, which is good for like rocket engineering and, figuring out how to profitably mass produce electric vehicles. That's helpful to have someone that is quick to iterate and quick to change plans. With something like social media, it might not be very helpful because it scares the advertisers away and it makes people less comfortable dropping $8 a month on memberships because they don't know what they're signing up for, because the policies or the rules might change. Now you're not going to get the same blue check that everyone else got. You're going to get a different check that doesn't mean the same thing as another company's check. And that results in a bunch of people signing up and then canceling. And I don't know if Elon's rocket iteration engineering techniques of, SpaceX success was built on blowing up a lot of rockets and failing consistently. Elon, you could say a lot of things about Elon. He's not afraid to fail, clearly, because he's willing to go to war, like he said with Apple. He's willing to put his foot down and say, "I'm gonna make my own phone. I'm gonna make my own platform. I'm gonna sue Apple," because he thinks he can get away with it. He may very well fail, but he's not afraid to fail. So he's willing to try lots of things that many would argue are not good ideas, including myself. Um, of course, Elon. I think he can physically. Can he design the software to make an everything app? Yeah, I have no doubt about that. Can a billionaire hire a bunch of software engineers to do everything he wants? Of course, yeah. I have no doubt they can make a everything app. Whether or not everyone will use it and the company will be profitable, that's a different discussion. You want Apple to buy Lucid, right? Eh, I don't know. I feel like if Apple was buying an EV startup, that would probably mesh the best. I don't know if I think it's a good idea though, because Lucid's not doing very well. Lucid hasn't found a way to make a very profitable or desirable product that a lot of people want to buy. That's why Lucid is pretty much the only EV company that is struggling to find buyers. Pretty much every other electric vehicle manufacturer, if they make a vehicle, someone wants to buy it. Aptera has tons of orders. Tesla has tons of orders. Fisker Ocean has tons of orders. Rivian has a huge backlog of people wanting to buy their product. Lucid's like the only EV company that has made a product that there's not a huge line of people to buy. And that's why Lucid had to launch a existing inventory website where you can buy vehicles and get them delivered instantly, because there's no wait time. They're building more vehicles than there are people ordering them, and they're losing people. They reported from quarter over quarter, 3,000 people canceled their reservation, or no, 1,500 people canceled the reservation, and that's when they introduced a new model. So they had a certain number of Lucid models, introduce a new one, and they lost people. So that either means that there was a very large percentage of cancellations, or literally zero people bought the new model they introduced. Neither is a good situation. So I don't think Apple, if Apple bought Lucid, it would be very good for Lucid. I don't think it would be very good for Apple. I don't think it would help them much. It would help Lucid a lot. But anyway, Benjamin super chatted, Apple buying Blackmagic would be antitrust behavior because of Final Cut and how they already make cameras on iPhone. What? The cameras that they make, no, it's not antitrust when I don't think iPhones are competing with the same people that buy Blackmagics. If you buy a Blackmagic camera, you're not like, oh, I guess I don't need to buy an iPhone now. Like, they don't compete with Blackmagic. I don't agree with that at all. Um, and Adobe is the monopoly of video editing software, not Final Cut. Or DaVinci is free. DaVinci Resolve is free with a paid option. Final Cut is a one-time purchase model. I don't think antitrust would be that upset. Blackmagic's not that big a company anyway. Um, yeah, I don't want to say Andrew Tate again. Please don't ask me to. My current Verizon Fios bill is around $50 a month. That's great. Congratulations. Should the next iPhone Pro get the full-size SD card for ProRes recording? No. It should get a USB-C port so that you can move the. It would actually be easier to take the footage off the iPhone through USB-C than it would be an SD card. SD cards suck. I hate physical SSDs. Um, let's see. There's all these messages being deleted. Um, let's see. Why are Elon going to war? I think because he's not making enough money off of Twitter. I think that's what's motivating this whole thing. He's seeing ad revenue drop, and Apple was probably one of their biggest customers. So they're losing out on a lot of ad revenue, and Elon is looking at the 30% fee that Apple takes on Twitter Blue and realizing that, well, we could increase Twitter Blue revenue if we got that down to like 10%. Epic tried to do the same thing with the Epic Games lawsuit, and it didn't work. So I don't think Elon is going to get anywhere with it, other than just make a bunch of people mad at Apple, which upsets me because I'm a big fan of Apple and I like Apple products and I like Tesla products. So to see them fighting with each other just makes me mad. It's like, come on, you guys can get along. Um, Drew, you've dropped a lot of weight. Congratulations, man. Well, thank you, Sierra. That means a lot. That was kind of my New Year's resolution goal this year. So the fact that people are actually noticing it in the comments and stuff, it makes it all worth it. You guys kind of help me, for better for worse. You kind of help me stay in check because when I gain weight, people mention it. People talk about it, and when I lose weight, people talk about it. So it kind of helps motivate me when I see those types of messages. Um, Granted, there are definitely some people that were very harsh and that talk about my appearance in a very negative way that I don't like. Um, but I appreciate anybody who's willing to go out on a limb and compliment someone because of the way they look. I appreciate that. That's very generous of you. And I I'm at like an all-time low right now. I think I weighed in this morning at 176 pounds, which is the lowest I've been in a long time. Um, Chris Norton says, I love watching your videos. You are informative. Has your schedule changed? Yeah, a bit. There's been some more family stuff going on behind the scenes that I've had to prioritize my schedule with. So I tend to work a bit more into the evenings now than I used to work just in the mornings. Um, Now my schedule is a bit more spread out throughout the day, but yeah, it's good. Apple's marketing has directly pitted iPhone against Red cameras. Yeah, but they're not. That's just a way to showcase how good the iPhone camera is. That's not because there are people that are like, oh, the iPhone camera's so good, I guess I don't need to buy a Red anymore. It's like, that's not what's happening. They're just trying to brag about it. And anybody who knows anything about cameras knows that the Red camera is still substantially better than any iPhone camera. There's just very, very specific rare use cases where the iPhone looks kind of good next to a Red. But that does not mean people are not buying Reds anymore. Benjamin, thank you again. Too many super chats. He says, will Apple ever vertically integrate displays like with Apple Silicon and radio chips, make everything in-house? I've been advocating for that for years. There's been no evidence that they're heading in that way. It seems like Apple always wants to outsource production, but I think it would pay off because right now it's costing them money. They are literally missing out on iPhone revenue specifically because they have outsourced production and they're relying too much on China. And I think they know that, and that's why they're trying to move production to other regions. But it would be, I think, in so much better interest for them to design and manufacture all that stuff in-house rather than outsource it to third parties. How did I lose the weight? Mostly just calorie counting. I'll do a video on it later in the year. I'm kind of waiting to do like a end of year update video on the Talks channel. But mostly I'm still eating I had a bunch of pie last night. I had I've had a lot of candy after Halloween. I still eat ice cream. I still eat burgers. I still eat the same stuff. I just eat less of it. Um, that's different things work for different people. I don't recommend everybody do what I did, but what worked for me was just eating less. It was just figuring out through online calculators. You can look up what your daily burn rate is, but just plug in your weight and your height, and a calculator online will tell you your lifestyle, like how active are you, and it'll tell you you burn on average about this many calories a day, and then you just don't eat more calories than that. If you eat less calories, and you don't want to lose weight all at once or very quickly, because then you won't maintain it. You'll lose it really quick and then gain it all back. And there's also health problems that can arise if you starve yourself really quickly. So it's not like eat half your burn rate, but eat just I forget what it is. It's like I think it's 100. You eat like 300 calories less than what your daily burn rate is, and then that equates to uh, around 1,500 calories a week you're in the negative on, and then that equates to around a pound of, you slowly lose a couple pounds a week, and over time you can maintain that a lot better than just if you try to lose a bunch of weight really quickly. So that's the point of kind of waiting to do that video until the end of the year, is to be like, it's a slow, steady process. It's not like, how do I lose 50 pounds in 2 days? That's not going to work. Um, Neem, thank you for the super chat. Why don't we have a Tailosive Politics channel yet, Drew? Have you considered franchising? I'm willing to pay a fee to rebrand my channel. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that, but thank you for the donation, like Nick's Space Channel. Yeah, that's not really a thing anymore. He's not on Tailosive Space, but I don't believe that the internet is a good place to discuss political subjects. It's just things are too controversial and people get way too passionate and way too brave behind the protection of a keyboard. Um, and I prefer those kinds of conversations off the record. And I'm also just not that interested in them. I'm more interested in tech stuff and EV stuff. So that's what I want to talk about with my limited time in the day. It would be fun to make 5 videos a day, but I just don't have that kind of time. Um, I kind of have to pick my battles with my videos, and I'm most interested in tech and EV stuff, so that's where I've chosen to spend most of my time. I'm not that interested or that passionate about political subjects. Um, and the ones I do want to talk about, I tend to talk about with people one on one in person, because that tends to go better than trying to talk about it online, which always goes horribly. Um, let's see. Why do people have such a problem with glasses? People, for some odd reason, hate me because I wear glasses instead of contacts. I've never heard of that. I know lots of people that wear glasses. I've never heard of them getting backlash for it. I'm waiting to do that video. Exactly. Um, let's see. Off topic, but thinking about getting older MacBook Air on Amazon renewed for general basic use. Want to spend as little as possible, but what's the oldest model I should go beyond and still be okay? I don't. I don't really enjoy many of the Intel MacBook Airs. The only MacBook Air I would really recommend is the M1, which you can find for pretty cheap. I would just recommend getting the cheapest M1 MacBook Air possible. If that's too much, then I don't know. I have a hard time. The Intel based MacBook Airs were very slow, and I don't think are going to age very well if you're buying them at the end of 2022. But let's see. Once during a keynote, they've mentioned the iPhone isn't supposed to replace real cameras. Well, of course it's not. Until Apple is filming their Apple events with iPhone cameras, then they understand there's still a place for dedicated cameras. That's why they ship MacBooks with SD cards now. If they thought the iPhone was the only camera you should use, they wouldn't be putting SD cards on MacBooks. Um, let's see. Do you hear this week's Waveform podcast? No, the guest challenged Marquez on tech and morals in his Tech Affects Humanity and Mental Health. Truly recommend you listen to it. MKBHD felt thrown off guard. Oh, that's interesting. But I tend to not watch that or listen to that much tech content, because I spend so much time making it. That's not what I want to do in my spare time. Um, we didn't take down the Tailosive Space channel, but you notice he hasn't uploaded it there in over a year. Chris Norton says, how many videos do you make a day? Usually 2 pieces of content. Usually a live stream in an edited video or 2 edited videos. Sometimes 3, but most of the time 2. Um, the Space Channel, we didn't delete it, but Nick is spending all of his time, rightfully so, on NASA space flight, and he works with Tim Dodd, the everyday astronaut, because they actually make money with those channels, unlike Tailosive Space, which does not make money. Um, let's see. Speech advocating consequence free speech. Oh, what are you guys talking about now? Um, yeah, I mean, a company that dictates what you can and can't say on a platform is different than getting arrested for saying something. We do have freedom of speech in the U.S. You don't have freedom of consequence. Um, someone can someone can get really mad at you or even sue you for things you say. That's why we have defamation lawsuits. But you can't in the U.S. at this time, you can't necessarily get arrested just for having saying an opinion. Now, if you want to put that opinion on someone else's website, like YouTube or on Twitter, then that website can decide whether or not they want to allow you. It's not the same thing. Let's see. Being attacked by moderators for asking polite questions. I don't know what you're asking. Um, let's see. What was your heaviest weight, dog, and what was your highest before hitting your lowest? The highest I've ever been was around 245 pounds, which is not hard to find. If you scroll back just a couple years on my channel, you'll see when I was like over 240 pounds. But that was not a healthy weight. So I did exercise a bit in the summer, but I had a hard time staying on top of that. And I also kind of discovered that exercise doesn't actually change your burn rate all that much. You actually burn quite a bit of calories just existing, just just with your heart beating and breathing. And my lifestyle is not terribly active. I try to go on hikes and walks and I run occasionally, but um, to add in some workout routines, it actually doesn't burn your calorie. It doesn't increase your burn rate by that much. Um, Basically, I'm just trying to say that I've lost a lot of weight without exercise. And when I exercised, I didn't lose that much more. Um, the diet that worked for me was to just eat less. Just look up. It's not that hard to find. Look up like before you eat something, look up how many calories it is. And I had a lot of help from my wife for sure because she um, tracks with like a dedicated app, like how many calories are in certain foods and how much you're intaking. And I also do intermittent fasting, so I tend to not eat breakfast. I usually eat just between 12 and 8 o'clock, but I've not been following that as closely because my goal at the beginning of the year was to weigh comfortably under 180 pounds because I looked up my height and my age, and they said that for me to be in a healthy weight range, I should be below 180. So I was like, okay, if I can get to the point where even after Thanksgiving, when I eat like crazy, because we went to a Thanksgiving like big old lunch at my uncle and aunt's house, and then we went to a big Thanksgiving dinner at my grandma's house. So I ate like an insane amount of food on Thanksgiving, and after Thanksgiving, I was still under 180 pounds. That was my goal, and we hit that. But since I've hit that now, I'm no longer eating as carefully. I'm not trying to lose more because I'm just basically just trying to stay the weight I'm at. Um, so that means I can eat basically whatever my burn rate is. As long as you intake as much as you are burning, then you won't gain or lose weight. It doesn't really matter all that much what kind of food it is. But I'm not a nutritionist. Don't take my word for it. I'm just telling you what's worked for me. I don't use an app to track my calories, but my wife does. I forget the name of it. But food moderation is the key. Any competent dietitian echoes this. Okay, good. Um, I'm just saying I've not eaten super healthy food. Okay, even if Twitter was forced to follow First Amendment, which I agree with, people like Jones and Tate would still get banned anyway. I still want Apple to buy Pokemon. I want them to buy Pokemon. I mean, I I support that whoever's in charge of the platform will decide what is and isn't allowed. There's a lot of content that YouTube doesn't allow, but I kind of get why. um, I don't think all of it is necessarily pushed behind a narrative, but what I will give credit to YouTube with is that they have created a very wide range of content that advertisers are comfortable spending a lot on, which is not just good for the advertisers and not just good for YouTube, but it's good for us. It's good for the content creators to have a very large group of advertisers that are comfortable spending. You know, imagine if uh, Susan Wojcicki or whoever it is in charge of YouTube came forward with uh, fist swinging about how much they hate Apple or how much they don't like a certain president or don't like a certain political party or don't, you know, if they came forward uh, with a loud mouth endorsing certain political viewpoints, then that would impact advertiser spending. It doesn't necessarily matter whether it's left leaning or right leaning, but as long as it's controversial, advertisers are going to feel a bit less comfortable spending money on that platform. And they've you know, there's certain things that they censor that upset people, but I think it's mostly for the betterment of the advertiser spending, which ultimately dictates how much content creators how well they perform. And um, there's there's reasons to be careful about what you allow. Like, I'll say that. I know it sounds easy in concept for people to be like, "Why do we need to monitor? Just let everybody say whatever they want." Well, that has an impact on how well your platform directly does, because if your content creators aren't making as much because advertisers aren't spending as much, then people aren't going to want to use the platform. If the content, it's a very difficult circle of like of checks and balances that have to happen. If the advertisers aren't happy, then the content creators aren't going to be happy because they're not going to make as much. So if the content creators aren't making as much content, then your viewers aren't going to watch as much, and if your viewers aren't watching as much, then advertisers aren't going to spend more. Really tricky to get that cycle comfortable, to get that algorithm fine-tuned, and that's something YouTube has done pretty well. We did have the big demonetization wave back in 2017, 2018. I remember when that was going on, but I'll give them credit, they kind of fixed it. We haven't really had that same issue recently. They raised the bar of requirements. They made it a bit harder to get monetized, and they increased the number of manual reviews being done so that it wasn't as easy to get content monetized, which was a bit of a double-edged sword. It meant that it was harder to get your channel approved, and I'm still annoyed by that. Like, we've been trying to get our EV podcast monetized for months now, but because we can't get 1,000 subscribers, they won't monetize us. But we have tons of watch time because it's the type of channel that people listen to hour-long videos each. So we have like, I think we just surpassed like 8,000 hours of watch time. So in order to get monetized, you only need 4,000. So we're like double the requirement, but we can't monetize any of it because we don't have enough subscribers. So there's still annoyances that come with that, but it did raise the bar to a lot harder standard, which made it easier for them to manually review monetized videos and stuff. Randy says, notice my current member badge was updated to the M1 icon, so maybe that should be my confirmation that I should get an M1 MacBook Air. Yes, take that as confirmation, Randy. Exactly. It could be MyFitnessPal. That does sound familiar. Inspired by Challenge says, my wife wants to know what app your wife uses that you were just talking about. Man, I don't. Should I be recommending an app if I'm not getting paid? I should reach out to them and say, I'm going to do a video. You guys need to support me if I'm giving you free shout outs. Okay, Benjamin super chatted, says calorie burn rate is important, but calories have different potency. A calorie that comes from sucrose is going to convert into more fat than a calorie from fructose. Right, and it should be mentioned that I'm not necessarily in great shape, but my goal that I did technically succeed in was to lose weight. Doesn't necessarily mean I have adequate amount of muscle and fat. I would argue that I'm lacking proper muscle, and I still have a tummy. You know, I still have a gut. So my proportions are not necessarily as good as they should be. But there are, you know, you could technically just eat. I've heard of people doing a Twinkie diet where all they eat is Twinkies and they still lose weight because they're not intaking as much as they burn. That doesn't make it a good idea, but you have to get a bit more specific when you're like, well, what is your goal? Is your goal to be in shape, or is your goal to lose weight? Because there is a way to lose weight and still not be necessarily healthy. Let's see. So I would Could a Tailosive Health or Tailosive Motivation be in the works? I don't have time to do more channels, but I will dive into more personal lifestyle coverage on the Talks channel. So I do plan on doing a video on my weight loss over on Tailosive Talks, because that's like my Tailosive other. That's like my just non-tech related content goes on Talks, but I can't come up with regular content that I could post there. I just don't have the time. Neem says YouTube and Twitch still haven't fixed low creator payout in January, February months. I don't know if that's possible to fix. That's an advertiser problem. But I would argue they're helping alleviate it, because as you guys can see a lot of badges in the chat here, encouraging memberships, whether it's you guys signing up for Tailosive Tech Plus or Tailosive Tech Pro, which I think is live now. I'm not very confident about it. I want to add more perks to it, but I'm not sure which ones I'm comfortable adding yet. But I did introduce Tailosive Tech Pro, which basically just opens my Twitter DM. So if you want to talk to me directly, non-publicly, then Tailosive Tech Pro is the tier. And we also have Tailosive Tech Ultra now. So if you want to collab with me, you can sign up on that tier. But having memberships, people supporting you monthly, is a way to alleviate the low advertiser spending in the off season. Basically, advertiser spending peaks up a lot in November, December, around now, because it's holiday season. So there's just naturally more people spending. And then in January and February, there's a lot less spending going on. So that means there's less advertiser spending. But the memberships with people supporting directly helps offset that, as does YouTube Premium, which is a consistent cost. So people that watch my live streams or videos through YouTube Premium, I get the same revenue from you at all times throughout the year. It doesn't matter what advertisers are spending. So no, the Tailosive app isn't happening. You're in the Tailosive app right now. YouTube is the Tailosive app, but I have diversified and offered more for the memberships and stuff. But yeah, the app ended up being a lot more complicated to make than I think it was worth. It was a project many years ago. They had a beta. I'm quite an old fan. Thank you for that, Yo-Yo. Excuse me. Neum super chatted, says a Tailosive health and fitness channel would be amazing. Drew, in all of Tailosive history, why has Nick been the only one with a franchise deal? He's not. My friend has a fitness channel that's free income for you. Just because I want to be in control of the Tailosive branding. But Nick was by no means the only or the first person to come up with the Tailosive channel. I need to know the people that I'm working with very closely, and I knew Nick very closely. I just there's not enough time in my day to keep in track, honestly, with the people that are running. Like Mike, for example, who's in the chat, is running the Tailosive Shorts channel. I know Mike very closely, and I've had a lot of off-the-record conversations with him, so I'm comfortable with him running another Tailosive brand, and he has control and access to the podcast channels as well. So it's not necessarily about franchising. Nick didn't pay me to do Tailosive Space. I just knew Nick pretty well. Gabriel super chatted again. Thank you. He said, should Apple adopt text message send later feature? I don't know why they need to. I feel like you can already do that. Like, if you just type a text in iMessage and don't send it, it will stay there for like days. You can leave the conversation and come back to it, and whatever you last texted there would still be there. So I don't personally see the need for a send later feature. But I guess if you want a more streamlined version of it, sure, I got no problem with that. I wouldn't use it though. Why are people, that's a better question I would like to ask. What are people sending messages later for? What's the point of doing that? Channel skinny fat chat. I just don't have enough time to do more channels. I can't do everything. Benjamin super chatted, says, would you join Nebula? I just don't see a reason to. I've tried to move platforms before. I thought Twitch was I'm sure Twitch is still a lot bigger than Nebula. And I thought Twitch was a much better place to live stream than YouTube was, but I couldn't get that many people to move. In 3 years of doing Twitch streams, I got about 10,000 followers, and I still have, you know, way bigger following on YouTube, even though I promoted Twitch like crazy. So if I promoted Nebula like crazy, I would probably get maybe 4,000 followers. And I don't know how the revenue model works on Nebula, but I'm sure I wouldn't make as much as I would if I just made the content for YouTube. So it just sounds like a bunch of extra time and energy I would spend to put myself on a platform that wouldn't really pay off. I already spend a lot of time making my videos available as podcasts. I don't know if I I don't promote that very much, but if you just want to listen to my videos and you don't want to open the YouTube app, you can listen to my tech streams or videos just on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can listen to me there. Um, Send message later would be great for when you want to send a message but know they are busy or you don't want to bother them at a certain time of day. That seems like a skill issue to me. That's why people have focus modes. I just text people as soon as I text them, and I assume that's why we text people, is because we don't want to bother them, and we know that people will address the text message when they're available, when they're free. It sounds like the other person doesn't know how to manage their notifications well if sending a text message is a disturbance. I thought phone calls were a disturbance. That's why texting got big. Now texting's becoming a disturbance. So how is sending a text later going to be any less disturbing? You know that person's schedule, and you know that that person is going to have their phone not silenced. I don't get it. To me, it's like just text them and they'll answer you when they answer you. That's why we have read receipts. I like listening to the podcast and streams via the podcast app when I'm jogging and walking. Good. Thank you, Mike. I'm glad you enjoy it. Um, don't forget you got partnered. You made huge accomplishments on Twitch, and it feels that's not an accomplishment. That doesn't translate to anything. You don't get a big check in the mail when you get partnered. It just means that you hit a certain threshold of activity. But um, there's not some accomplishment. I could probably go on Nebula and get partnered. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean anything really happens. Um, Series 7. Mike has a skill issue. Uh, iCloud lets you unsend emails like Gmail now. I think I noticed that, yeah, but I've never been in a situation where I needed to send one. What is Elon's end game in this war with Apple? I think his end game is to make Twitter profitable, and I don't think it's going to work. You know, I'm still in favor of Twitter getting better, so I was excited about the buyout, and I wanted it to go through because I think Elon had some decent ideas, but you know, now I'm also seeing he has a lot of bad ideas. And I at least admit that it's more interesting to have a platform that changes its mind so quickly and is introducing new features. It's definitely made me more fascinated by what goes on Twitter now than all these people leaving. There's a bunch of people leaving Twitter, and I'm like, wow, you really gonna move? You're gonna put your foot down and switch platforms? All right, go for it. Um, Benjamin says, I meant double upload video on YouTube and Nebula. Yeah, even that requires time. Uploading is not nothing. It adds another step. To me, it's already a fairly complicated process that I got to export my tech video, upload it to YouTube, and then I got to export it again as an audio file and then upload it to Spreaker, add in the title, add in the description, add in the ads. Nebula would add another step to an already very complicated process of making thumbnails, uploading everything. I don't know how many advantages there would be or how much I would make just by uploading the exact same video on Nebula, but from what I know about the platform, it's not that big, and I don't think I would make much more. Why does phone call quality still suck 2 decades plus later? Well, if you're using carrier phone calls, it's still going to suck, but if you use FaceTime audio, it sounds a lot better. Is there a reason you don't do sponsors in light of the FTX craziness with YouTubers being sponsored? I just don't like sponsored videos. I don't like ads. And I know we have to have ads. They're a necessary evil. But I think the best case scenario is you let people who support you more directly through like YouTube Premium, they don't have ads when they watch my videos. And I also just think you guys are too generous. You're very supportive with the super chats and the channel memberships. You're so kind that I make enough. Like I feel like I make too much, to be honest. To the point that doing a sponsorship or doing a brand deal would just be greedy at this point. Some channels do it, and that's fine. I don't have any issue. I'm in favor of channels running them the way they want to run them. And many channels would rather make more by giving up more of their screen time in the video to a different brand, to a different company. And I'm a control freak. I like having control over my content. I don't want to give up time. I don't want to talk about some other company in the middle of my video or some other service. I just want to make the video as efficiently and as quickly as possible. As the channel members who watch my behind the scenes live streams know, I try to do everything as quickly as I can. I try to save time where I can. And if I had to make time for some brand deal or send off the video to the brand to ensure they're comfortable with me posting it, that would just slow down the whole content production process for the sake of making more money. And for some channels, making more money directly helps them improve the quality of the content. I don't feel that way with my content. The reason most people watch me is for my ideas, my thoughts and opinions. And no matter what I've done in the past, people haven't really followed my channel because of the high production value. People don't watch my videos because they think my B-roll is really good or they think my cinematography is impressive. There's other channels that do that. And if you're the type of channel that's like, people watch me because of my high production value, then I guess doing sponsorships is reasonable, because then you can take that extra money and make it improve the content. If I took extra money, I don't think the quality of my videos would improve much. I could get a slightly better camera, but most of you guys don't watch me because of my B-roll or because of my cinematography. You watch me for my ideas and my thoughts and opinions on things, which are going to be the same whether I use a $1,000 camera or a $10,000 camera. My thoughts aren't going to change much. So I don't think sponsorships would improve my content. I think it would make it worse. And I am grateful that, thanks to you guys watching my videos and super chatting and everything, I make enough to pay the bills. I'm comfortable with what I make, and I don't feel like I need to make more. I'd be fine making less, to be honest, because I'm just having fun, and I think doing sponsorships would push away our closeness that we have. Like as an audience to creator relationship. I enjoy hearing your guys' thoughts on things and answering your questions and feeling like just like an online friendship, basically. And if I were to start doing more brand deals, I would be improving my relationship with brands, but making my closeness with you guys feel less genuine, feel less honest, because now, sorry guys, it's that time of the video. I got to say this thing. I got to stick to the script. I signed a contract. I got to read this off. That makes it feel less honest. That makes it feel less genuine. So I don't want to compromise on that. So if the channel's in need of more funding, which it's not, we're doing fine, thanks to you guys. But even if in the future we are, I would rather lean more into memberships and trying to come up with better perks that can make us feel closer and feel more genuine and more honest. And if that time does come, I'll have no problem saying it. I'll just say, hey, these videos, they take time and they take energy, and to pay the bills, I gotta hit a certain threshold. And if in the future we're not hitting that threshold, I'll come forward about it. I'll say something and say, hey, if you guys want me to do this full time, then we're going to have to hit a certain goal with our memberships or, Patreon or whatever. We're going to have to hit a certain number if you want me to keep doing this. And hopefully that would be enough to keep it going. Neem Super Chat, it says, don't join Nebula/Curiosity Stream. My favorite city planning infrastructure YouTubers have it. And sorry, I'm not paying when YouTube is free. Just upload the content here, grow more, and the money will come. Well, the money's been coming thanks to you guys. Damon Fowler says YouTube Premium is where it's at. I agree. I do not subscribe to very many subscription services at all, but YouTube Premium is one I will not budge on. And the price is going up next year. They've informed me that I'm not going to get my grandfathered pricing anymore, but I'm not canceling. Luckily, I share the revenue. I share the subscription cost between a few family members, so it's not as high as it is if it was just me. But Darcel Saber says, Twitter has always been a hell site. I left it 3 years ago. That's the funny thing is, like, we talk about Twitter a lot, but it's actually quite small. We act like Facebook is dated and no one and unrelevant. No one uses Facebook. It actually has more users than Twitter does, which is kind of funny. Randy would be the official spokesman salesman for Tailosive business ads. He already did an amazing coffee ad. Yeah, see, I was okay with them doing sponsorships on the podcast because Mike and Nick and Randy, they were putting time into the show. And back when we did the sponsorships, it wasn't making any money. So there was all this time and attention going into the content production, and it was getting nothing in return. And I wanted the guys who were working hard on the podcast to be reimbursed for their time. The podcast didn't have the same thing YouTube did until we found Spreaker. Once we found Spreaker, we could put ads in the show just like we put ads on YouTube videos. And just like YouTube, just like the YouTube channel, if you have premium, there's no ads on the podcast. So if you sign up for premium, you can watch Tailosive Tech, Tailosive EV, you can listen to the Tech and EV podcasts, and you won't get any ads because you're supporting us through premium, which we appreciate. I watch for your B-roll and skits. Well, the skits are going to be the same no matter what camera I use, but I barely have any. Most of my B-roll is screenshots of websites. So I don't believe you when you say I watch for your B-roll. Gabriel, thank you for the super chat. He says, do you have Apple Care? I've never bought Apple Care in my entire life, but that's just because I'm careful with my tech. Have you considered a clips channel that would condense portions of these streams down to like podcasts do? Yeah, I mean, we do, like Mike just said, we do Tailosive Shorts, which takes all the skits and condenses them into 1 minute vertical form videos. So it's kind of like TikTok in that way. But condensing parts of the live streams, I think Mike has talked about doing that, but I don't blame him because he doesn't make any money off of the Shorts channel. I think they're going to start sharing Shorts revenue next year, so maybe he will eventually. But at this time, Mike has a full-time job. Honestly, he has a full-time job and a half because of how hard he is working at the place he's working right now. And he's still trying to make time for the Shorts channel, which takes up a lot of energy for his editing. So I don't expect him to go back and watch these live streams and turn these into Shorts too, because that would take a lot of time. But yeah, again, all these things just take time. I'm trying my best to, in the most efficient way possible, make the most amount of content. And there's always ideas. Everyone has more. You should do this channel. You should do this channel. It's all a time question. Future Primitive says, yeah, don't advertise. Well, thank you, man. I don't hate people that do it. I just want to be clear on that. I don't hate every YouTuber that does brand deals. I'm just saying I appreciate the channels that don't do them a little bit more because I feel like my time is more valued. I don't have to skip through the sponsorship. I don't have to find the end of the brand deal. It's just I watch a lot of YouTube and I want to be more like the channels I like. I want to be a YouTube channel that people want to watch. And if I know that there won't be any brand deals, then I know I'm not going to get any ads when I watch those channels because I have YouTube Premium. It's pretty special to see a YouTuber who does not make sponsored videos. It's refreshing to know that what you say, you really meant that. Well, I feel like I'm already biased enough, right? When you're taking a brand deal, that people assume there's a certain amount of bias going on because you're getting paid to say something, even if you believe in the product. I know everyone says that. I only do brand deals of products and services that I personally use. It's like, yeah, you can say that all you want, but you're getting paid. If you're getting paid, you're inclined to continue saying nice things. You signed a contract with someone. That's just always, regardless of how genuine you are, that's going to impact. You have to disclose it. You have to say you're getting paid to say it. That's going to impact your recommendation a bit. So I already am biased towards Apple, and I'm already saying like I love Apple, and even if an iPhone has worse features or worse performance than an Android phone, I'll still take the iPhone just because it's like colors to me. It's like a favorite color. Like I just objectively I find the color red prettier than the color blue. So in that same way, I just subjectively I find iOS better than Android for personal preference reasons, not necessarily objective reasons. Um, Have you? Yes, we did. Truly believe you're the original YouTuber, the type of creator that YouTube was always intended for. Thank you for sticking to your belief. Well, thank you. You guys are being far too generous today, far too kind. Man, can you believe we started this whole stream with? I feel like we're getting off traffic. Abasanth says, but Twitter is way more influential than other larger social media platforms. That's a good point. I feel like it's the best. Social media platforms lean into different things. You know, I feel like Instagram and Facebook in general are just more personal. Like you keep up. I don't use Instagram personally or Facebook. Um, I don't have the apps installed. Occasionally, I will make a post, but I do it from the web just to make sure people know that is me. I figured I need to have a somewhat of a social media presence under my brands, otherwise someone else will pretend to be me, which I've had happen. So I'm like, no, this is me. That's like, even though I don't believe in the platform, I just want to have some presence there so people know that's true. Don't believe in anyone else claiming it's true. But you keep up with your friends and family more on Facebook and Instagram, whereas I don't really keep up with my personal friends and family on Twitter. I feel like Twitter is more about news. Twitter is definitely oriented more about engaging with, like, you can tag and tweet directly at a celebrity. Elon Musk could reply to your tweet, you know, like you can see what Tim Cook announces through his Twitter page and stuff. And I feel like there's more of a brand to consumer emphasis on Twitter than there is. You don't really get that feeling with Instagram or Facebook as much, or at least that's not how people use it. Like you could comment on an official brand's post on Instagram and get a response, or you could hang out with your, talk with your sister or your brother on Twitter. You can do that, but I feel like it tends to not work that way. That tends to not be how you interact. Um, so I think that there's a certain inherent limit. You know, I saw Elon say in his presentation that he wants to get Twitter to 1 billion monthly active users a month, which is not even half of that of YouTube, by the way. Um, but yeah, like YouTube is not. I mean, you guys can chat in the live chat and you guys can comment on videos, but it doesn't feel as personal or as social as a platform like Facebook or Instagram is. You know, you follow your friends. Most of the time your friends don't post YouTube videos that you comment on. You're typically following channels that you're interested in, or just watching the recommended feed recommend you stuff. Um let's see. You guys are too kind though. Neem super chatted. He says, "Why does Frugal Louise allow you to pay for Spotify? Cancel that subscription." I don't pay for Spotify. Where did you hear that? The only reason I use Spotify is because my brother-in-law uses it. He pays for it and he lets me have access to it for free. But if my brother-in-law ever canceled his Spotify, I would definitely use YouTube Music. No, I don't know where you heard I was paying for Spotify. I've never paid once for Spotify. Not a penny. Grant Hardy says, "I love that the channels that put a bar at the bottom to let me know when the ad ends." Yes, I do appreciate that more. That's better. It's like if I was ranking YouTube channels, a combination of sponsorships, it would be like the bottom is channels that literally start the first 30 seconds of the video with an ad read, and channels that don't tell you when the ad is over. It's a bit better when they're like, okay, sponsorship gives you a countdown. Okay, that channel I appreciate more because it makes it easier to skip. And then above that, channels that don't do sponsorships at all, so I don't have to skip anything. That to me is peak, because it means that if you're a YouTube premium subscriber watching that channel, there are no ads, and that's the best case scenario. So that's why you gotta have to be a team player. There's been a lot of channels and a lot of content creators that have tried to convince everyone to leave YouTube, come to my website, come to my app, and we even talked about doing it. We got a beta program going, but once we realized how complicated it is to get people to move platforms and how difficult it is to have hosting of web services and ad revenue spending, and all of that just is so complicated and so expensive, that you realize, being able to post content for free on YouTube is actually pretty freaking nice. You have the largest audience, you have free hosting, there's a comment section, the algorithm can promote you for free if the content is good enough. Like, sometimes it just makes more sense to pick a team, and we picked the YouTube team for Tailosive, and we just picked if you don't want ads on our videos, YouTube Premium, that's the best way to do it. Whereas if you do the sponsored stuff, even if you pay for premium, you don't necessarily get zero ads. You get less ads, but um, you said you don't watch a lot of tech YouTube other than MKBHD. What channels do you follow? Oh, I don't know if you want to know that. People might get mad. I've been listening to a lot of Lex Friedman interviews recently. I actually follow a lot of smaller channels. I love Sandy Monroe of Monroe Live. I love Aptera Owners Club. Um, I don't agree with everything he says, but I do watch a lot of Warren Redlick and Out of Spec reviews. Actually, I think my favorite YouTube channel right now is Crockbach. He's just hilarious and makes me laugh every time I watch his videos. Out of Spec Dave is very good. Um, I'm looking at my subscription feed right now. I'm like, what do I watch? Dirty Tesla, he's great. I love that's probably my favorite EV channel is Dirty Tesla. I just like I don't know, he's so dang likable. Although he does do sponsored ad reads, just so you guys know. I do watch channels that do brand deals. Um, I like Ryan Reynolds. He's not small, but who else do I watch? I've not been keeping up with the Corridor crew as much lately. I think they got a little too sponsor heavy for me. I like Corridor Digital, but they lean a bit too much on the sponsorships, and it kind of pushed me away. But they got a lot of overhead. They have a lot of people working for them, and they got to buy a lot of expensive equipment. So I get it. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it, but I think they've just leaned a little too hard into the sponsors. Um, yeah, there's a lot of Crockbach on my videos. Oh, those are funny. Um, let's see. EVs. It's all EV channels. YouTube music is broken for me. It replays a song over and over. Well, that's kind of how I listen to music anyway. Martin Gel says Tailosive is basically the antithesis of Linus Tech Tips in most ways. Not a criticism of LTT. It's just an observation I found. No, I think you're onto something there. Everything with Linus Tech Tips, for one, they're very not Apple focused, right? They're very build your own PC, and that they're for repairability and they're for not supporting Apple. Basically, they love complaining about Apple, and they're in favor of doing lots of brand deals and being on their own website so that they can, afford to pay all these people, and they have an increasingly larger number of staff. And Tailosive is very much the opposite of that in a lot of ways. It's like, let's try to consolidate, simplify, have as few people as possible, make things as simple as possible. Um, they put Markiplier in it as an intern. Those sponsorships definitely paid for it. Oh yeah, they need a lot of money. I'm very curious how much profit they actually generate. I know they spend a lot and they probably make a lot, but how profitable is that business? Which scares me because I think I saw Linus Tech Tips tweet about that once. They said that like if their revenue doesn't hit a certain amount, then they're going to be in big trouble, which scares me. I would not like that. I kind of prefer being in a situation where even if the channel performs poorly, you'll still be able to pay all your bills because it means that you don't have to get desperate. If you don't have to get desperate, it means that you can stay honest and truthful with your content. If you get to the point where you need to make a certain amount of money to stay afloat, then you're going to clickbait a lot harder. You're going to push narratives that you might not necessarily agree with, but it's because you don't have a choice. You have to make a certain amount of money. That means the brand deal is in a very significant advantage over you because you can't say no to the brand. You have to bring in a certain amount of money each month or else you're going to go in debt or you're going to have to fire people. So to me that's kind of scary to get to a point where your overhead is that high. Um LTT does a good job with transparency on sponsorships versus reviews. Well, I'm sure I've heard mixed things in the past where people are like, this whole video is basically a commercial, but um, it doesn't necessarily make the content more enjoyable, even if it is transparent. Neem Super Chat had said, did you see Lex Friedman's interview with Destiny? No, I've only watched a couple. Um, I just kind of started watching him again recently. I haven't watched him for a while, but um, oh, I do still watch PewDiePie. A lot of people don't watch PewDiePie anymore, but I'm one of the OGs. I was kind of following Felix before he got big, before he was like the biggest YouTube channel. Um, and he was a lot smaller back then, but Tech Forum is also pretty good. I like Tech Forum. Um, yeah, they have the MAC address channel, which is like the, Linus Tech Tips made their own version of Tailosive Tech, and they called it MAC address. They got a ginger talking about Apple products, but I don't know. His channel's not very similar to mine, other than the fact that he talks about Apple and he kind of looks like me. Um, they're very much like a B-roll scripted focus, whereas I'm going for idea speculation based videos that are more commentary focused and not B-roll focused, and I'm definitely not scripted. Um, the only equivalent to Talos of Tech is Talos of Tech. There's no other tech channels on YouTube. That's right, Mike. Let's see. FTR, I do appreciate your sponsorship free explanation, and it is appreciated. Thank you, Steve. You'd hate this year's April Fool's video. Probably. What do you think about the rumor about the Apple new MacBook Pro design for the iPhone 15 Pro? Generally, I'm excited for it, but that's spoiler alert. The channel members already know. That's what the next tech video is on. How do you spell the crockbach? I love seeing you guys try to spell it. It's spelled crackback. Oh man. If I can get enough people to watch crackback, maybe he will put me in a video or something. But it's spelled KRACC space BACC. He makes a lot of videos about The Rock and Nikado Avocado. Um, they're very short videos, but they always make me laugh. Lots of Breaking Bad memes. I love Breaking Bad memes. I'm just scrolling through his videos now. I'm looking at all this stuff. Lots of memes, but just hilarious. Um, let's see. I would guess at least $10,000 in sponsorships per day, 3.6 million. Oh, that just stresses me out. That doesn't excite me. That just makes me feel really stressed out. Um, Thank you for the super chat, Neem. He says, when you get older like Quinn and start to have kids and settle down, do you think you will expand Tailosive and be more involved in the economy and give Americans a job? No, I don't. I think if anything, I would just uh make less videos before I would expand and hire more people, because that just increases the likelihood that I would lose control of the content. I would rather make less money and retain more control than make more money and lose control. Um, that's part of the reason I decided not to go to film school, was because I knew I wouldn't have as much control, even though I would have more influence and more likelihood that I would get a job at a bigger company or something. Let's see. Drew did a video on Mr. Beast. That's true. What do you think about how diverse YouTubers can become, from video content to food, boxing, etc.? Do you think this is just a trend? I don't think Mr. Beast is just a trend, no, but I think YouTube is a very beautiful thing. You can kind of make it as stressful as you want it to be, or you can make it as easy as you want it to be, depending on how you structure your business. And I think that channels like Linus Tech Tips and Mr. Beast have opted for the larger overhead, which means the greater risk, greater chance of failure. Um, Failure in that you're like in debt or you're laying people off. To me, that would be a failure. Um, Other channels might not view that as a failure, but it basically means it requires a lot of your attention. You know, the more people you hire, the more you have to ensure that you make a certain amount, and to ensure you make a certain amount requires that you are at the liberty of the algorithm, and your videos really need to perform a certain amount, or the brand, you really need to get a certain number of brand deals, and if you don't, you're in trouble. Or you can choose to keep your expenses low and not let things get too out of control, so that you have more control and more say and um, more flexibility, I guess. Like right now, if a bunch of people just stop watching my videos, or the channel tanks, then nothing really that bad happens. I just go, okay, I guess I make a little bit less, but I'll keep making enough to pay the bills. Brand deals is a good way to be able to invest in side hustle, eventually becoming primary, allowing one to retire from YouTube. I don't think you need to do brand deals to retire from YouTube. I would argue I'm probably a lot closer to retiring for, uh, than all those big channels, because uh, they have so much overhead. Whereas basically, how you dictate what your monthly expenses are dictates to how well your channel has to perform. So if you're more dependent on the channel performing at a certain amount, That's gonna be a lot harder to obtain. Um, MAC address seems like an excuse for Linus to say he doesn't hate Apple for channel. That was supposed to be more Apple focused. It feels more like if LTT was okay with Apple's existence. Oh, that's a funny idea. Maybe that's their attempt of getting on the nice list. They want to get Apple products early. So if they make a Apple tolerated channel, then they might get on the nice list. Um, don't retire. We need your videos. I don't plan on retiring because I enjoy it, but I do think that if the job starts, if you're no longer working a job and the job starts working you, you're more likely to want to retire. I don't want to retire, but if you turn it into a job where there's staff and HR and all these people you got to keep track of and all these charts and income that you have to maintain and all these brand relationships that you have to maintain, you might not want to do it as long. That might wear you out and tire you out, and you might burn out a lot faster that way. And then you'll be looking for a way to retire. Uh, Thoughts on Nikado Avocado? I I hope he loses weight. I'll just put it that way. I hope he's healthy because it seems like kind of a sad story, basically. Someone prioritizing the views and numbers over everything, which I think is quite dangerous. Kind of ties into that subject. He ultimately just wanted to be famous. He wanted people to know who he was. And people weren't watching his videos, even though he was a very talented violin player. He wasn't getting that much attention, even though he was healthier back then, and realized he'd get a lot more attention if he stuffed himself full of food to an unhealthy degree. So he's literally like hurting his body for the sake of views and attention, which is quite sad. That's why I don't watch his videos, is because I don't want to support that. I want him to get help, but doesn't stop the Crockbach memes from being quite hilarious. Let's see. You would never lose control because you're the CEO unless you're thinking of IPOing. No, no. You lose control in terms of time. The more time you take on it means the less control over your day you have. What you do and you'll never enjoy what you do and you'll never work a day in your life, basically. And I don't think more money necessarily means that the job would be more enjoyable. Um, I just want to ensure that my job stays enjoyable. That way I don't want to quit doing it. The crazy things people do for fame, absolutely. Thank you for the super chat. Too many though. It's cool how similar you and I, Justine, are. Would love to see y'all hang out more like she does with Marquez, because you both don't have studios or employees and do everything from your house. I don't think it would be as interesting as you think it would be. We don't watch each other's videos, so there wouldn't really be much to say. You can just pretend, just put my video up and put her video up at the same time. There's your collab. That's about to say. Um, let's see. If you were offered a job at Apple, would you take it? I don't think so. I don't think there's anything of value I can offer Apple. I think I'm very blessed and very fortunate, thanks to you guys, with my current position. Just I feel like my skills, if you could call them that, of like quick editing, conveying complicated thoughts and opinions on subjects and putting them out there on the internet. I think my set of skills is best suited on YouTube. I don't know how my skills would be useful to Apple because I'm not a hardware engineer. I'm not a software engineer. I'm not an engineer of any kind. I'm not very technically impressive. I don't like working under other people's hours. I don't. I prefer having self control over my schedule. I prefer the flexibility of this job, and I wouldn't have any of that if I worked at Apple. Um, but no, what I mean by losing control is losing time. To me, that's the most valuable resource, is time, and that's what I feel like I'm rich with. You could choose to probably do more brand deals and work more, make more YouTube channels and spend money on those channels and hire people that make more content for your channels. You could choose to do all those things to make more money, but you'd have a lot less time. And to me, time is infinitely more valuable than money. And that's kind of what I love about this job, is being able to decide how I want to work. Like this morning there was the big blowout going on between Elon and Apple, and I was like, "Oh my God, there's so much going on right now. I want to talk about this." And the fact that, I didn't have to wake up at a super early hour and drive to a building to work or anything. I just got out of bed after watching all this happen, and I'm like, I'm gonna hit go live, and I'm just gonna talk about and say what I'm thinking. And the fact that I can do that, and at any time, probably in the next few minutes, I can just say, okay, I think I've said enough. I'm done now. I want to go hang out with my wife. And I can just hit stop and just go hang out with her. And I can spend 3 hours with her. I can spend 30 minutes with her, depending on what we feel like doing today. And because I don't have other employees or other channels waiting on me or certain responsibilities to tend to, I can just continue to be flexible. And, if I'm sick, I can take the day off and I don't have to ask anybody about it, which I did last week. I took several days off because I felt horrible. And I don't have to check in like, hey, can I take today off? Okay, but we're going to have to deduct it from your sick days or anything like that. Just the flexibility of time to me is why I feel very, very comfortable with where I am. Um, what other characters do you want to do for the skits? I haven't done Tim Cook in a while. I don't know. There's not that many more. I've done Elon. I've done Craig. I've done Tim. Um, I don't know who else I would do. It's kind of hard to do a Zuckerberg voice. I tried a few times, but it didn't. Same with Bezos. I tried to emulate Bezos' laugh. What are your thoughts on the ringer switch? My phone is always on silent. I honestly wouldn't mind if it became software like the iPads. Yes, I'm totally with you, Apple Repair. I'm in the exact same boat. It's always on silent for me. I would not mind at all if they got rid of it. But I've talked to a lot of people that swear by it and say that's like the reason they use an iPhone, and that's the reason they won't switch to Android is because they love the ringer switch so much. So it's not me, but some people feel very passionate about it. However, if you're just curious on my opinion, I like never touch the ringer switch. It's always on silent. I don't know why that needs to be a physical switch. I would be totally fine if they got rid of it. What if Apple hired you freelance to help redesign iPad OS? Would you do that? I don't think I'm very useful. I don't think they need me. That like all I would do is say how I think it should work, which is not that valuable. They can get anybody off the street to say, how do you think iPad OS should work? And I would be like, I think it should be like this. Okay, but I can't code anything. I can't actually make those changes. All I could do is tell other people to make those changes, which they don't need to hire someone to do. Um, they should remove it like on iPads. Yeah, I agree. Ben super chatted. You have to rescue Tim from Craig and your skits. I know. I keep trying to think of a way to bring him back. That would be cool. Let's see. Let's see. I'm too poor for monitors. I sacrifice my paychecks to support my favorite streamers. I truly believe it's my job as a view to make sacrifices for creators. Well, that's very generous of you, Neem, but I hope you don't feel that requirement, like especially with my channel. Like I appreciate your donations and I appreciate you supporting, but genuinely, like I'll be okay if you cancel. Like it's not the end of the world if I would do these live streams if no one super chatted. I really mean that. Um, I genuinely just enjoy chatting with you guys and getting your different questions and opinions and all your thoughts. And there's just a lot of wisdom and a lot of life experience that I get from you guys talking in the chat. Apple has so much money they can destroy Elon. That's the best message I've seen. I love the concept that if someone just has a lot of money, then they can physically destroy some. I will destroy. I love that concept. But see, that's what I mean. We got like, there's people that I know by name, like Hasael and Ben Rayner and Mike and Chris Norton and Elizabeth, and Neem. There's all these people that come in regularly. I feel like I know you guys, even though we haven't met. So I just I enjoy this kind of interaction, regardless of the donations or not. Um, let's see. Yoke for new Model 3 redesign? I'd be in favor of it, but a lot of people would probably hate it. You basically would be the new Steve Jobs. Yeah, which I don't think they're hiring for. I don't think we need a position we need someone at Apple to just tell us what to do. We just need someone to show up and say, "You should all do what I say." Like I don't, and even if they offered me that, I don't want to live in Cupertino. It's super expensive to live there, and there's a lot of traffic, and I like having my own schedule. If I worked for Apple, I would have to abide by certain hours and show up to certain meetings that I probably wouldn't enjoy. I genuinely don't think, even if they gave me whatever the Steve Jobs equivalent position was of tell us what to do, even if I got that job from Apple, I probably wouldn't enjoy life as much as I do right now because I like being able to say whatever I think and whatever I want online with a cool community full of people. Um, let's see. Would you do two Drews in the skits like MKBHD does? I think I've done that. Uh, let's see. Thank you for the super chat. Andrew Hudson says, I love your channel and the skits. I'm in Africa, so can't catch them live often, but love to watch when I can. Wow. Thank you, Andrew. All the way from Africa. That's amazing. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Any Tailosive Talks videos coming up? Yeah, it's just a time thing. I got to make the time for it, which I'm struggling to, but I have a big list of oh, my wife texted me. Thank you. Uh, she said, "Don't spread misinformation." Uh, sorry, honey. Earlier, when we were talking about weight loss, she said she was looking for what we were doing was 500 calorie deficit a day equates to 3,500 calories per week, which is 1 pound of weight loss. Thank you, honey. Okay. So that's kind of the calorie deficit we were targeting was 500 eat 500 calories less than we were consuming per day, which is how you lose 1 pound a week, um, which equates to around 4 pounds a month, and then extrapolate that out over 10 months, you've lost 40 pounds, something like that. Anyway, sorry I didn't read that text earlier. There's all these people texting me right now. Okay, I am still seeing Apple ads on my feed. That's good. I don't because I'm on Twitter for Mac app, but uh, I would like to see concrete data if Elon has it on exactly how much Apple dropped spending. I wouldn't be surprised if it's not zero, but he said that they had basically stopped advertising. I wonder how much that actually means. What you fail to grasp is you don't need to know how to code. You could be a product manager and hire and look for a department team of talented software engineers to develop your vision for you. I just don't think that would be better than what I have now. I don't think I would enjoy that. That sounds like a lot of work and a lot of time. And I kind of already have that job because I go online and say what I think. And sometimes Apple implements things based on what the community requested. I know I'm probably not solely responsible, but I feel partially responsible that the iPad Pro from 2018 can run Stage Manager. They claimed that wasn't possible. And there were all these people defending Apple saying, no, Stage Manager needs the M1 chip. And I was like, no way. You could totally do that on the A12X chip. And a couple months went by and they finally did it. And now I actually use that sometimes. So I already kind of have that job. I could be a product manager, but you don't got to convince me. You got to convince Apple that they should hire me. And I also don't think I would say yes if they offered it. Um, do those people who want the ringer switch have an Apple Watch? I feel like that's when it really becomes useless. That could be. I've always had the Apple Watch ever since the Apple Watch has existed. And I prefer my notifications to tap me on the wrist, and I keep my phone silent at all times. So that's what makes me think I probably don't want the ringer switch because I have a watch. Hey, Hunter Wingheart, thank you so much for joining Tailosive Tech Plus, showing off the new H1 badge. The longer you're a member of Tailosive Tech Plus, the more your badge changes. It'll go up to W1 chip and then A15 chip, A16 chip, M1, and then M1 Pro, M1 Max. And I'll probably update those in the future as we get new silicon. Thank you, Hunter. Very generous of you. Would you live in a reality where AirPower made it to market but Apple killed the ports simultaneously? No, I would die immediately. No, of course I would. I thought AirPower was really cool when they first unveiled it. But then as time went on, I realized that it made less and less sense and it wasn't very practical. And honestly, I think the reality we're living in is better than the AirPower one. AirPower would have been very expensive and it wouldn't let me use my watch as a nightstand like I can with MagSafe Duo. This is cheaper, easier to fold up, and MagSafe is more satisfying and more helpful, by the way. Just being able to have magnets built into the back of the phone that you can attach to things was a way better idea than overlapping 30 charge coils so that you could have like 2 inches of flexibility when it came to wireless charging. Um, when ISO, you think the new home? Oh, when do I think the new HomePod is coming out? Oh man, they've gone quiet on the rumors about it. Uh, yeah, I'm it's shooting the dark for me. Maybe next, but probably like end of next year, they might come out with a HomePod that docks with an iPad or something. You have like a screen attached to the smart speaker or something like that. Um, Looks like Apple Music will come at the right time to Tesla's. Yeah, I'm hoping that doesn't get canned because of Elon being angry at Apple. I'm really, really hoping that doesn't happen because there's so much overlap, you know? There's so many people that love Apple products and love Teslas, and they just want more collaboration. They just want their car and their phone to work together better. They want Apple Maps, they want Apple Music, they want CarPlay. But Elon is just dead set on being angry and mad at Apple and that they're monopoly and the 30% cut. 30% is very reasonable, very standard, by the way. They're not a monopoly, but it's just a shame that he hates them so much. I feel like the collaboration between these two companies would be legendary if they got along. But it goes both ways too. It seems like Tim Cook didn't want to even talk to Elon in the past. He just refused to have a meeting with the guy. Um, Favorite iPhone plus iOS version of all time, iPhone 5 on iOS 6 was near perfect in my opinion. I'm not very unique or original. I'm always in favor of the latest one. To me, the best iPhone ever was the 14 Pro Max. The best iOS was iOS 16 until next year, and then my answer will change to whatever the latest version is. I don't have that same obsession with like, oh, this old version. I really loved this old phone when it came out. It's like, no, I mean, I liked it when it came out, but then another one came out that was better, and then I preferred that. Um, Favorite iPhone plus I already read that. Sorry. Love your channel. Quick question: are you having battery drain problems on standby on 16.1.1? No, I haven't noticed. My battery's been great, honestly. What am I at? I'm using continuity camera right now. My phone is still at 55%, even though I've been live for over 2 hours. He is also acting like this 30% thing was secret or something. I know. Why did he call it a secret cut? Everyone knows about that. No one cares. I mean, Epic Games cares. People that are, maybe this is a bit of a stretch, but a bit of a hot take. Companies with worse revenue models, they care about 30%. Did you guys know YouTube takes 30% of every Tailosive Tech Plus membership? Here's a picture of me not caring because YouTube made a great platform and Apple also made a great platform where people are very comfortable to spend lots of money on their app store. So you are comfortable paying a fee to get your app on that app store because that's how money works. That's how business works. Choose one for the iPhone 15. Flat camera bump, 2-day battery, or no notch or pill. Uh, I already have a 2-day battery with my phone. I guess no notch or pill would be kind of nice, but I also really would appreciate a flat camera bump. Uh, I guess the notch or pill doesn't bother me all that much. Some people like dynamic island, so I guess I would choose flat camera bump. Don't you think Elon is having a "I'm the next Steve Jobs, you need to listen to me" kind of behavior? Well, I feel like he's always kind of thought that way. I mean, Elon has a very large ego, but I mean, if anyone deserves a large ego, it's probably him. He's the kind of guy who's accomplished so much. I mean, everyone told him he was crazy. When he sold PayPal, he invested half the money in Tesla, half the money in SpaceX, nearly bankrupted himself, and everyone was telling him he was an idiot. Like, not only do most car companies go bankrupt, but he was trying to start an all-electric car company, which was like double stupid, and he was trying to do it during the recession, which was like triple stupid. Like the dumbest thing you could have done with your money. And he was trying to invest in a private rocket company. Like so many terrible decisions being made that everyone thought was super dumb. And he turned them around and he figured out a way to make SpaceX the most successful rocket company of all time, Tesla to make the most successful car company, most profitable car company in the world, and I think will continue to grow and likely become the biggest company on earth. So the guy knows what it's like to have the odds stacked up against him. He knows what it's like to have a bunch of people telling him he's stupid. And he has a track record of turning situations around and having it pay off and work out for him. So, with the kinds of circumstances that have stacked up against him and he's succeeded, he probably feels like he can accomplish anything. Yeah, we're going to make humanoid robots that will replace all manual labor jobs and we're going to make robo-taxi. It's like, of course he thinks that way because he's accomplished amazing things and he's achieved these things that others thought were impossible and everyone told him was impossible. So is that going to make someone very egotistical and think they can do anything they want? Yeah, of course it will. It's kind of like not surprising that he acts that way. Doesn't mean he's right, doesn't mean he can achieve everything, but the guy knows what it's like to have the odds stacked up against him and do well. Tesla's margins are close to 30%. Correct. They're very good. Neem super chatted. Drew, thoughts on Dick Costolo, Jack Dorsey, Elon Musk, and Parag? I know very little about all of those people except Elon, so I'm sorry. I appreciate the super chat, but you're gonna have to get a bit more specific than thoughts. Give me thoughts. It's like I don't know who they are, and I'm not that interested in who they are. You could start talking about services like AWS Lambda in your channel. Well, I would have to know what that is, but what's there to talk about? Nick Jr. says, do you have the AirPods Max? Do you experience an issue with pairing after a few years of or disconnection? No, but my AirPods Pro, the right one, has a hard time charging. I think I just need to clean out the case. I don't have AirPods Max, but I've been tempted to buy them many times. If they were USB-C, I would definitely consider it. I think that would be the easiest sell, is if you could just give me the exact same AirPods Max, but with Type-C. I'd be like, okay, that I can justify. But the fact that it still has Lightning and they're still very expensive, even when you find them on Cyber Monday deals, I think 9 to 5 Toys, if you're interested in AirPods Max, there's a website right now that's selling them renewed. So they're not new, but they're refurbished. There's some people that are selling them for $350. That's still a lot, though, for me. For a pair of over-ear headphones, I know that it's $200 less than new, but I thought the new price was absurd. I would say USB-C under $400. I could probably buy a pair. If Tim told you we will make one product exactly to your specification, size, and color, what would it be? It must be realistic enough to come out next year. Ooh. I guess iPad Ultra. I would say this is exactly how many ports and how big I want it, and I want it to do Mac OS and iPad OS. I mean, that to me is more realistic than my other answer, which was going to be make a camera, make a DSLR to my exact liking. That would be really cool. They're either former or present Twitter CEOs. Well, I don't know exactly what each one did, but I didn't think Twitter was very good before Elon. I think they were making a lot of dumb decisions and activity was going down and they were losing money. It didn't seem like, and from what I've heard about how they were running the company, it seemed like a very inefficiently run company that was spending way too much money. So I'm not in love with anybody who's run Twitter so far, like any of their strategies. Elon's definitely the most interesting because he's throwing all these things at the wall and seeing what sticks. So it's kind of funny. I would say Twitter's the funniest under Elon, but I don't think any of them have really done a good job. I think all of them have made crucial mistakes. Would you consider deleting Twitter with the way it's going? You're one of the only people I follow on there. No, I like Twitter. I want it to succeed. I want it to do good. And so I'm not boycotting it. I'm not like I do Instagram or Facebook, which I hate. Do you love Mark Zuckerberg? I guess you have to if you use Instagram. That's how that works, right? If I don't like Elon, then I have to delete Twitter. No, I use Twitter a lot for news. It's probably the best news app I've ever used, and I like interacting with people on it. I actually appreciate the character limit. I like that design that you have to keep the tweets concise. I think that's better for people's attention span and better for community engagement. Um, I want it to get better. I want it to improve, but it just seems like he's making a lot of very poor decisions with it. Um, but I like it for the memes as well. It's a good way to get discovered via memes. Usually, if I post a meme on Twitter, it does pretty well. Um, but the only way I would consider leaving Twitter is if they made it paid only, which I don't think they'll do, but I think I saw some people entertaining that idea. Like maybe they'll reach a point where you have to pay for Twitter to use it. I won't do that. I will not pay to use it like as the only way to use it. Only way I would consider paying for Twitter is if that was how you access their monetization program. Like to turn it into a YouTube alternative, you had to pay for Twitter Blue. Okay, I could get behind that. I consider myself lucky that YouTube doesn't charge me for that. I could see a future where cloud storage gets so expensive and maintaining YouTube becomes so insanely hard that they just decide, I'll, we'll not let anybody upload as much as they want. Like you have to pay for YouTube Premium if you want to post content that's over a certain video length or over a certain resolution. Like if you want to post more than 1080p at 30 FPS, you got to pay for YouTube Premium. Okay, I'm already paying for YouTube Premium, so fine. But yeah, like if it meant that paying $8 a month, or even if paying $20 a month, if they made the content creation tier more expensive, if it was $20 a month, but the ad revenue split was 70-30, you would still make more on Twitter than you would YouTube because that $20 a month is relatively small if you're posting content that gets a lot of attention. Um, all of Gen Z is on Instagram, but I just hate the Zuck that owns it. I know. I really don't want them to succeed. But Twitter to me is just so useful, so valuable that I'm not going to leave it just because they made some decisions I don't like. I mean, if I was to be consistent about that, I would have left YouTube a long time ago. YouTube made all kinds of decisions. I don't care. Who's in the wrong, Apple or Twitter? I don't know if either is completely innocent. Thank you for the super chat, Neem. So you like Twitter short formness, Drew? What are your thoughts on features like Twitter Note, Twitter Threads that make the platform similar to its Meta competitor? I don't think that'll work out, to be honest. I think that's why Twitter succeeded so well is because of the short form content. And if you let people just tweet huge paragraphs and basically huge articles, most people just aren't going to read them. They're just going to ignore them. Um, and people are like, "Oh, but I hate the threads," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I a lot of people can digest the threads a lot more because they're all separated. If you just let people tweet giant articles that you have to open up, that's not much different than just linking a whole separate website." Um, I prefer Elon over Zuckerberg. Yeah, I'm with you there. Elon's accomplished a lot more than Zuckerberg has, and I think Elon has done a lot more for humanity than Zuckerberg has. Um, Darcel Saber says having to pay $8 to have your tweets in the algorithm to have the same level of engagement as before is objectively bad, regardless how you feel about Elon. No, I don't agree with that decision either. But I also don't think that Twitter Blue was a good idea in general. Like the only justification, in my opinion, to pay for any kind of social media site is that you get something close to YouTube Premium. I'm sorry, but that's just the best subscription service possibly available at this point. Like you get music streaming, you get ad-free content, you get offline downloads. That's what people are willing to pay for. YouTube tried to do original programming and kind of become like Netflix, and it didn't work. It flopped. Like to me, the most successful way to get people to pay for a subscription is to make a lot of people spend a bunch of time on the platform and get rid of the ads. And Twitter Blue doesn't even do that. It's half as many ads. And you can have no ads if you use Twitter for Mac anyway. So Twitter doesn't have enough time spent on it or engagement on it to justify getting rid of the ads because there's not much video content there. So to me, the if you wanted a bunch of people to pay a monthly fee to use Twitter, the best thing you could have done is make an alternative to YouTube. make a clear, concise, easy to understand monetization program that you can sign up for, and people pay money to get rid of the ads on the videos, because videos that are especially longer form, that's where people are going to spend the most amount of time. That's why YouTube has so much monthly, daily activities, because there's a very large amount of content and a lot of time spent on YouTube. That's why so many of you guys are still watching this live stream 2 hours later. You don't get that same kind of engagement on Twitter. If you just want to get rid of ads that you scroll by, then people, you're not saving that much time. You just scroll a little bit longer. I agree that the decision to make your tweets less relevant if you're not paying was a bad one, but it doesn't make it so hard to see your tweets that the platform is unusable. I haven't paid at all for Twitter Blue, but I still get a lot of activity when I reply to big accounts, verified or not. I still get a lot of attention on my tweets, even though I'm not verified. Let's see. Hey, Drew, I just joined. How has he gone to war? Thank you, Devanus. Basically, he wants to, I'm guessing, either sue Apple based on his tweets. I think he either wants to sue Apple. Let me refresh, see if he said anything. Oh, it's a revolution against online censorship in America. Yeah, that's what I don't think. I don't think that's what Apple is doing. Lex Freeman tweeted, Apple should support free speech. I agree, and I would say for the most part they do. If they allow Truth Social on the App Store, I don't know why they wouldn't allow Twitter. That's what I guess confuses me about the story, is Elon claims that Apple threatened to take off Twitter from the App Store, but they didn't say why. And he's tweeting memes about going to war with Apple over paying the 30%. So I assume that means he wants to sue them or make his own phone, both of which I think are going to go horribly. I think the lawsuit would end up in Apple's favor, just like the Apple versus Epic lawsuit ended in Apple's favor. And if Elon made his own phone, a very small number of fanboys would buy it, and everyone would just stop using Twitter, basically. The difference between Elon and Zuckerberg is Elon is a bad human and Zuckerberg... Well, who the heck are you, Circuitry? Who gets to decide who is and isn't a bad human being? Does that mean we're all so entitled? I think all humans are to a certain extent bad and good. But how are we to... You don't know either of those people personally. You don't know what Zuck has done or what Elon has done behind closed doors, or how they act when no one's looking. How do you dictate he's a bad person, he's a good person? Right. Because we all are perfect judges of character. I don't think anybody's really in a position to say which people are good and bad. Unless we're talking about like war, people who engage in like literal war. But that's not what they're doing. Maybe Elon will buy out Instagram like it did Twitter. No offense, Drew, but unlike Google's acquisition of YouTube, I think early on Meta improved Instagram, but now they're running Instagram, so break them up, please. You can't just buy any app you want. Instagram's not publicly traded. You can't just buy it. I haven't used Snapchat in years. I have no idea what Snapchat Plus is or what it does. Grant Hardy says Twitter Blue has no value for me, so I never intend on purchasing with these set of features. I agree. I'm in the same boat. The only thing that would convince me to sign up for Twitter Blue is if there was a way that I would get a return on that. Like, I'd have to profit money off of Twitter. So if paying for Twitter Blue meant that I could make money on Twitter, and I'd probably make at least a couple $100 a month, then that I could justify spending $8, $20, $50 a month for. The price of Twitter Blue doesn't really matter to me. It's just the concept of what it enables. Fortnite did not come back to iOS, no. Don't you think that it is at least great that Elon is always communicating directly with Twitter users and getting their opinion? Yes, I do. I do like that. I mean, I don't agree with everything he's done, but I do appreciate that he's more open and transparent than most social media CEOs. Most people don't do those kinds of things. Most people aren't like, tell me what's wrong with the platform and how I should fix it. Apple would never do that. Tim Cook would never go on Twitter and say, what do you not like about Apple? What do you not like about the iPad? And just welcome public scrutiny, public feedback. He would never do those kinds of things. Apple just sidesteps and gives political who's to say answers, that they're so calculated, they're so cold. There's advantages to that, but like as a company, I think when you're vague and you're not very specific and you're kind of you're kind of quiet with most political standpoints, advertisers are a lot more comfortable giving you money because you're a faceless brand, which is kind of what you want for a successful social media platform. But one advantage of Elon being very transparent is that he just like takes advice. He's just like, what should I do? People say you should do this, and he'll be like, that's a good idea. We'll do that. Like I appreciate the real time interaction he'll have with normal everyday people. Um, Reject Snapchat plus, embrace Snapchat minus. Beautiful. Ben Rayner super chatted. That's what makes me laugh at Twitter. Everyone judging everyone on being bad. No one is perfect. No, I agree. He's a bad human being, right? Because I'm perfect. What did Christ say? I think he said, "Of you who is sinless, throw the first stone." I like that statement. Um, okay, whoever's perfect can say who is good and who is bad. Tell me who's perfect. Um, let's see. When guys my age at 21 ask for my Snapchat, I laugh. We're not 15 anymore. I can give you my number. That's hilarious. I just don't really like Snapchat in general. I don't like the concept of temporary media. I don't want to take a bunch of pictures that are gone within minutes. Maybe teenagers like that idea, but I know YouTube and Instagram aren't publicly traded companies, but the parent companies are, and Elon is not a company. Is it? Yeah, but then you'd have to buy Meta. That you can't, and companies don't necessarily allow that based on how many public shares there are. Like you can buy a lot of Tesla stock. That doesn't mean you can buy out all of Tesla. There's only a certain percent of the company that you can buy. What is Meta's market cap at? Yeah, you can't buy a 288 billion. Even if Elon Musk sold every single Tesla share he had, he couldn't afford Meta. Um, and I don't think Meta would allow it, even if they wanted to buy them out. You could buy up a bunch of the stock, but that doesn't mean you own the company. Um, let's see. Twitter needs to compete with OnlyFans for that. I thought Twitter owns OnlyFans. Do they not? Ryan Reynolds is the only perfect person. I think I agree with Ben. Ryan Reynolds can decide what happened. Can Ryan Reynolds buy Twitter? He already bought Mint. How much more expensive is Twitter than Mint Mobile and Aviation Gin? Would you ever like to go to Apple Park? Sure, if they. I've been there. I've not been inside it, but I've gone to the visitor center. Hugh Jackman is also up there. Another perfect human being. Denzel Washington. We need a council of people that decide what happens to every human being on the planet. And it's going to be Hugh Jackman, Ryan Reynolds, and Denzel Washington. And, another good one would be Forrest Whitaker. I love Forrest Whitaker. Let's see. I'm still mad they listened to the public feedback about the MacBook Pro's ports and touch bar. I'm less upset about the ports, more upset about the touch bar. Let's see. Who'd want to buy Meta with their current reputation? That's true. I think the joke was that he should buy Meta and then just delete all of their social media. Buy Meta, delete Facebook, delete Instagram to just completely dissolve the company. That would be a very expensive joke, but Tom Hanks maybe, yeah, that would be up there. Um, the Illuminati of perfect. Morgan Freeman, that's another good one. But yeah, man, I'm getting a little hungry, guys. I haven't eaten anything today, and I probably should. But this has been a very fun live stream. I've enjoyed the talks we've shared and the definitions of perfect human beings. But ultimately, Elon, if you're watching this, which I'm sure you are, don't go to war with Apple. They're your friend, not your enemy. And just get going on that video feature on Twitter. That's how you really increase usability. And I think you should try to be more apolitical if you want advertisers to be more comfortable spending money on your platform. That's if you want Twitter to do well, just listen to the people. Don't do this whole everyone who pays for Twitter Blue is verified. In my head, I have a very simple solution to how verification works, but basically, it should not be a paid thing. Verification is not something that needs to be behind a paywall. That it isn't on other sites, and it shouldn't be on Twitter. Okay, last super chat from Neem. I don't know, Drew. One thing I learned is people love money. I believe if Gates, Musk, and Buffett teamed up, they could buy out Meta. Yeah, but they wouldn't get anything back. Meta's doing horribly. Investors are losing money. Look at the stock market; they would totally sell. But that isn't. They're selling because the company's doing horribly. So why would Gates, Musk, and Buffett all sell all of their stocks so that they could buy a dying company? It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I appreciate the super chat, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. I'm using the iPhone. Like I'm using continuity camera, Ricardo. Thanks for asking. It's a great camera. But very generous of you guys today. Very polite, very generous donations, and more videos are coming. They'll be here. Just be patient. I got some more videos to make. Maybe I should do a short explaining how verification should work. But thank you all for tuning in. Elon, don't go to war with Apple. It's not going to work in your favor. You're just going to burn a lot of money. But honestly, if you're going to go to war with Apple, I would rather you make your own smartphone so that it would be at least interesting to see what a Musk branded or Tesla branded phone would be like. And then in order to get that phone made, you're going to have to sell all your Tesla stock and then you won't be a part of Tesla anymore. I'm in favor of that. I think I think your best days at Tesla are done. You need to move on. Just spend all your days at SpaceX and Twitter, Neuralink and what have you. I want Tesla to be its own thing. So please sell all your stock and make your own phone so that you'll lose all your money. Thanks, Elon. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good day. Bye bye.